We're going to start our program with Dr. Jason Silverman, who is exceptional in the field of education. We are so lucky to have him here today. And he's going to talk to you about the role of teaching assistants at Drexel. So take over.
Thank you, Alexis. So, hey everyone, welcome to the 17-18 academic year. We're glad y'all are here, and thank you for taking some time out of your pre-term week to join us. I know some of you are actually required to come here, many of you. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about kind of an overview of the role of the TA, a little bit about a university. Some of this may be review or experience you've already had. Some of it might be worthwhile, some new information. I'm also going to share a little bit that is very general to the university. So you may have specific questions that some of the topics we'll talk about in the next few minutes in general. I'm glad to take any questions at the end, but please note that I may redirect you back to your graduate chair or someone more local, whether it be in the college or the department, for some of the more specific questions about your role and things like that. So just kind of funny, welcome, orientation. We hope not to disorient you. A few objectives for the conversation we're going to have today. We want to talk a little bit about what we hope to get out of this course and a couple of the two-day orientation that y'all are participating in today. An overview of Drexel, your place and role as a TA, a little about the course, and then really most importantly is an opportunity to learn a little bit about the kinds of different professional development offerings that Drexel has for folks both on the teaching and learning side of the house, but also for the Graduate Student Association and other professional developments offered by the Graduate College. As Alexis mentioned, I'm Jason Silver. I'm a professor in the School of Education. I have been here for going on 13 years. I work closely with undergraduates and graduate students. I have a research group that I run. I have the 3 or 4 TAs and RAs that work with me, both teaching and on the research side. I did want to acknowledge there's at Drexel University we have what's called the TA Excellence Committee, which is comprised of faculty from across the different colleges that come together to talk about supporting and training and recognizing our teaching assistants. They've been very active in preparing the workshop for you today. Some of them will be here for a presentation later. And also just wanted to acknowledge Alexis Finger, who's been working with TA training now for years, from back when the Graduate College was an office, and then it's gone through all its different iterations, but Alexis has been kind of a steady force in the preparation and support of our TAs. So I want to recognize her as well.
Thank you.
So as far as goals for both this little brief talk that I've got here today, as well as the overall conversation you've got over the next day and a half, the starting point is to think at some level we begin with an assumption that you're on some sort of a teaching trajectory. And what that means is going to be different for each and every one of you. Whether it's that you're going to end up working with students during your experience here, but end up in industry, or whether it's going to be working with students here and end up in an academic career where you're working with students for the rest of your professional career. At some level, teaching and learning and working with undergraduate students is somewhere along your trajectory. That's kind of the assumption that we've begun this process with. The goals for this is to learn about the resources and services available to TAs. We're going to have kind of like that speed dating y'all just did, with different offices and services from disability and technology and other kinds of resources that are available. You'll get flyers and handouts, but most of all, if you get a URL or a website or some piece of information you can take away, because these are things that will likely come up over the next few years that you're here. You'll get advice from get advice and tips from people that have been in your role either last year or in the recent future. Some of the ones have gotten recognized with TA awards, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You'll have a chance over the next couple of days and then throughout the term to practice, teach, and get role play and get feedback, which is really important. Please take that seriously, because what we've found is over the past few years That is the piece, the part where you actually prepare a lesson or prepare an overview and get some feedback, is the piece, as much as we prepare resources and tools and all that, that's the piece that folks talk about being the most impactful of their experience here. And we'll also set the stage for what we call research-based instructional practices. We want, assuming with the starting point that you're on a teaching trajectory, we want to think about what does it mean to be a good instructor? What does it mean to support people? And what evidence do we have for that? It might not be the research that all of you are doing, but at some level it's important if we assume you're on that trajectory to interact with young people, with students. We want to be thinking about and aware of what the research says about effective instructional practices are. And that's kind of our goal for both today as well as the few sessions we have throughout the rest of the term and the activities and the assignments. So, one thing to think about when you think about Drexel, and this may be, everybody may know this, but I think it's worthwhile to highlight. There are a lot of different institutions of higher education out there. There are a lot of different types of institutions of higher education out there. For the most part, they fall into three broad categories. An associate degree at community college, a master's degree granting, bachelor's and master's degree granting college or university, and a research university. And the reason I mention that is just to kind of situate our place within the academic universe. In a community college, academic faculty's role is primarily teaching. That's that purple bar there. There may be a little bit of other stuff they're involved in, teach a service or activities, but for the most part, their role is teaching. They teach 4 or 5 courses, sometimes 6. They have a lot of students. Their role is primarily teaching. At some bachelor's and master's degree universities, which some of you may have come here from, I actually went to a liberal arts college, the role of a faculty member is more 50-50. Their role of teaching is about 50% of their effort, their work, and there's other things that fill that role. For example, about 75. I'm sorry, that's up here. The other things that fill their role are a more significant research agenda, other kinds of service, and other kinds of work like that. At Drexel, at a research university, faculty loads are primarily focused on, faculty teaching loads are about half of their responsibilities. And some of you may find that to be more when you work with your advisors and your PIs and the like. What does that mean? At research universities, approximately half of faculty members' workload is teaching. Student populations are larger at research universities for the most part, varying from an institution like Drexel, which has about 15,000, all the way through places like Arizona State, Ohio State, that have 60 plus undergraduates. And this is the role that you fit in. As a teaching assistant, you are an important part of the academic enterprise. You're an important part of the teaching and learning. You're provided with a stipend and tuition in exchange for helping with teaching and labs. Graduate TAs, and this is one of the most interesting statistics that I've seen, graduate TAs make up about 15% of the post-secondary education workforce, which is really interesting when you think about that. And as I said before, you are a core part of the Drexel University academic program. We take this stuff really seriously. Teaching is, while it's 50% of the faculty load at the university, it is probably the most important thing we do, generating knowledge and preparing students for a future, productive future in the world. This is really important. That's the purpose of this TA orientation, and it's the purpose of why what's paying your bills while you're here. As far as typical roles, and this is where I'm going to be somewhat vague, but keep in mind these are things you want to think about. How does this translate to your specific role in your department or your college? Typically, you're going to work with large undergraduate sections. Now, how many people are from engineering here, just out of curiosity? Hard sciences, life sciences, things like that. Hands up. What's that? I did not mean to distinguish that. I was going to say hard science, and then I wanted to, so I did that. That was completely not an intentional. Physical sciences and life sciences. There we go. Sorry about that. What's that?
We don't know what we are.
Where are you?
Epidemiology.
Epidemiology. Okay, so public health. Public health. Okay.
Life science? No.
Social science. How many social sciences? So what we found in past experiences, for the most part, there are a few smaller programs like culture and communication, And that's about the one that sticks out in my head. Education is another one that doesn't have large undergraduate classes, but for the most part, all of the majors and departments that I indicated before, you're going to be working in large undergraduate classes. Your role will primarily be working with small groups in recitations, working with labs. Some other kinds of activities that you could take on are leading recitations, which involves helping students solve problems, preparing some additional exploratory activities for them to work on, representing material from lectures, supervising labs. Some other tasks that you may be assigned with include grading student work, proctoring exams, running help desks or tutoring centers. You're likely to have office hours, and occasionally, as you get further down the trajectory, to stand in for the professor. Some unlikely tasks, at least for now, are actually making a syllabus, creating exams, deciding on grades. You may have input in some of these things, but these are likely activities that will either fall under the course instructor or, in some cases, you further down the road. Like I said, down the road, you may have an opportunity to run your own class or to have the complete autonomy over the course. How many folks here, show of hands, have a sense of what course they're going to be working in this upcoming fall? Believe it or not, that's awesome. That number, that's not usually that high. How many people have met with the course director or the section chair or someone who's going to be overseeing them at this point? Well, that should happen really, really soon. And that's when you'll find out the details of what your specific roles and responsibilities are going to be. A few tips to think about. In all departments, the title isn't the same. At some level, it's a director of graduate studies. At some level, it's a course chair. At some level, it's a undergraduate associate dean or undergraduate department head. But there's someone who is going to be the point person for you in your work here. It should be important for you to figure that out in the next couple of days. You probably got a letter from them at some level. What they want from you as a TA, the first thing, they want to be a team player. They want you to be responsible. They want you to be prepared and know your stuff. Enthusiastic. It's sometimes hard depending on when the recitations are. A good communicator. Friendly, caring but not tight. An extension of the professor, that's one we'll talk about in a couple minutes. And to be aware of rules and policies and university guidelines and university requirements. And that's, again, where we'll have some of the sessions here, learning about some of the specifics of being an academic representative here at Drexel. And that's what this course is for. Before I get into this slide, I want to recognize in the bottom right-hand corner, how many people from physics? Anybody here from physics? Cool. You may recognize Declan. Declan was the former director of the Office of Graduate Studies. He actually created this course 15 years ago, something like that. A wonderful person, a lot of fun. He actually has the travel award that is, he started the travel award that, by the way, you all should know about. You can apply to the graduate college for funding to attend conferences and travel. That's been named in his honor, and he's generated some philanthropic gifts to support undergraduate student travel. But these, at some level, the pet peeves kind of came from conversations with him and work over the past few years. So here's some things to think about as you enter this phase, your beginning of your TA thing. There's a text. There's a text for every course. It's been chosen after lots of deliberation, often by a committee, often after multiple meetings and reviewing different textbooks. It's been chosen for a reason. Learn what that reason was. What's special? What's unique? What resources does it provide? What ancillary materials? Are there guides? Are there online materials? Why did they choose this text? Because that might help you as you try to implement that text with your students. Understand what the philosophy of the instructor in the course that you're working in, and buy into it. Even if you don't necessarily adopt this as your own philosophy, whether someone gives quizzes every day, that's not something you want to do, that's fine. But buy into it for the term and learn from Understand where the class materials are available. Where are the resources? Where are the course reserves kept in the library? Are they kept in a binder somewhere? Where are the materials the students are going to need? Because they're going to ask you for. You will likely, and this is a question to ask your specific director, you will likely be required to have office hours. Be there for your office hours. Seems like kind of a weird thing to say, but be there for your office hours. Don't schedule them at 11:30 at night on Friday afternoon when you know people aren't going to be there. Be there for your office hours. Our students, our undergrads are wonderful, they're fun. You'll likely find oftentimes you'll find some time to get your own work done, but you'll likely enjoy the time you have with meeting with your students. Schedule changes happen, but you need to plan for them. If you have a recitation on a Monday and Monday is a holiday, or if you have a religious holiday that's coming up or something that's scheduled, those are things you need to plan for in advance. Because what ends up happening if you don't show up or if something doesn't happen as planned, it's the instructor that gets the grief from the students or that gets the call from the provost or whatever. Understand the course policies. It's in the syllabus. Read the course syllabus and understand the course syllabus. If there's something you don't understand, ask your lead professor. Because you're going to get asked those questions. And at some level, students are, I'm not sure what the right word is, to pin one against the other. So be sure you're on the same page with your TA. I'll go over some of these a little quickly. Extra reading, going over solutions. Those are the kinds of things that you're going to be doing in your work. Understand what kind of penalties there are for missing class, missing recitation, and take attendance if you're supposed to take attendance. When it comes to proctoring, there is cheating at any undergraduate university. It happens, right? It's your job to be vigilant about that. And, one of the ways to keep aware of that is just to wander around and have people, recognize, it gets a little uncomfortable, but have people recognize, where you are and how to minimize the opportunities for people to glance and to cheat like that. And keep your records current. If you're supposed to keep attendance, if you're supposed to keep a grade book, keep your records current. Those are some things that people have learned over the past years that can be really helpful or can be really challenging in relationships with your leaders. As y'all know, this TA orientation is run by the Graduate College. The Graduate College has a lot of roles at the university. The one that you will definitely experience throughout your time here is the Graduate College is the one, and Taz, who I think is, I'm sure y'all have met Taz. If you haven't, meet Taz. He is kind of the one that keeps track of, by himself, amazingly, every graduate student at the university's academic progress. It's amazing. There are multiple forms you complete at each milestone, whether it's when you select your program of study, when you choose your supervising professor, the one who's going to be your dissertation chair, choose your committee, defend your proposal. All those kinds of landmarks are official university documents. They're official university processes, and the Graduate College is the one that manages all of those things as they get approved and recognized and certified. The Graduate College is also an advocate for students. One of the big things that has happened over the past, 5 years or so is the graduate student insurance subsidy, which is awesome. I didn't get that, and y'all it's awesome. It was amazing when you paid 2/3 of your stipend on health insurance, but those days are apparently gone. But there's other things that come up where graduate students need an advocate within the broader university, and that's the role of the graduate college. We also sponsor a number of events, and I just want to kind of peek your ears to a couple of things that are coming up. Books and Bagels is something you should pay attention to. It's there's food. It's not always offered at lunch. Sometimes it's like books and fajitas or something, but it doesn't sound as good. It's an opportunity to learn in short form about the work that's going on across the university. Students present a short presentation in layman's terms. The idea is to present your work in a way that's accessible to a broader audience. So you could hear about an education presentation, mechanical engineering presentation, and then biomedical science. in the same hour session, which is really a lot of fun. I would encourage you to check that out. I encourage you to keep that on your trajectory for down the road, even this year if you have an opportunity to get involved in work in the lab. There is a lot of professional development, whether it be writing grants, getting fellowships, and lots of other kinds of opportunities. There's also a lot of professional development when it comes to teaching and learning. And I would encourage you to take advantage of that. There's going to be sessions with the Wednesdays, week 4, 5, and 6 or something like that, 3, 4, and 5. Throughout this term, there's one about teaching across cultures, there's one about assessment, and there's one about kind of backwards design, thinking about goals and object outcomes as a precursor to designing lessons and activities. The other thing I just want to mention real quick, I am, in addition to my work as a faculty member, I'm a co-director of a center at the university called the Center for the Advancement of STEM Teaching and Learning, the CASTLE. The CASTLE is focused on providing professional development and outreach opportunities for graduate students focused on teaching and learning. We're affiliated with CERTLE, which is another center, don't worry about the names, but CERTLE is a national partnership. Schools like Georgia Tech, Harvard, Vanderbilt, Stanford, all Wisconsin, like places you've heard of, have all gotten together to try to think about how can we improve. There's online workshops and there's MOOCs, there's all these kinds of ways to think about teaching and learning in ways that you that you may not have before. So these are opportunities that are going to come out. They'll come out through TAS, they'll come out through announcements around the university. I encourage you to check those out. And finally, the Grad Student Association. I imagine, is there someone from the GSA going to present? Okay. If not, you'll hear all about them. They've been for a long time. There's a nice budget for the Graduate Student Association. They have kind of social cross academic events. There's lots of subgroups. There's for different ethnic orientations, for different departments. There's lots of different GSA opportunities. I encourage you to get involved. They do a really wonderful job, and there's some really amazing kinds of cultural academic mixes that is really kind of fun. Every year, the Graduate College also sponsors awards for outstanding teaching assistants. Outstanding Teaching Assistant Award was revamped about 2 years ago, and the TA Excellence Committee I mentioned, as well as Alexis and I, have run the award process for the past few years. Each year we recognize a number of outstanding TAs for their work above and beyond what it takes to be a normal TA. I just want to kind of highlight real quick, what are some of the characteristics or criteria for the TA Excellence Awards? Of course, there's contributions to student learning, but being able to document being reflective about its teaching practices. Trying something, analyzing it, and revising it, right? As far as kind of lesson design or lab implementation. Innovations. Did you try something new or unique? You go to a workshop, you learn about backwards design, you try to recreate a lesson or a recitation session based on what you've learned there. And also leadership and professional growth. There may be opportunities to either share some of the innovations that you've done with a pedagogy, instructional focused teaching professor, or attend a conference. You know, there's lots of teaching and learning conferences and teaching and learning sessions kind of embedded in many of your professional conferences. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for to document someone who isn't just a good TA, of which most of ours are, but someone who goes above and beyond, who's actually demonstrated some really unique innovation and interest there. And again, we will share ways and opportunities and methods and structures for that, but that becomes your responsibility then to think about how you take that up in the work you do on a day-to-day basis. One final quick note, and then we'll move on to some other activities. We recognize that you're here for an education, you're here for a degree, you're here because you're passionate, you're here for a profession, whether it's in industry or whether it's in a university life. We also recognize that you're not here to be a TA, right? A few things to keep in mind. The first thing is you will learn through your work as a TA. And I mean that in two ways. You will learn both about teaching and learning and people and relationships and communication, all those things that you may not get enough of in your regular academic programs. You will also learn about your discipline. As you think about trying to help someone else learn first year calculus or mechanics or, I don't know what the first question of epidemiology is. But as you work with, there we go, as you work with younger people within your own discipline, you're actually helping connect and make sense of and recreate understanding within your own mind. And that's really important. The second thing is you'll develop important skills. I talked about those: communication and public speaking, organization, time management, all those things you have to do when, in addition to doing your research, in addition to taking your classes, you also have to spend 20 hours a week working with professors and teachers. If you're not on the long-term academic trajectory that I started this conversation with, keep your mind open. You may enjoy it. Many people throughout the 4 years of their experience have changed the direction they want to go. Come in wanting to be an interstellar researcher and end up deciding, I want to go and teach physics at a liberal arts college because that's fun and enjoyable and a good life. Particularly in this course, enjoy the opportunity to reflect, to get feedback, and to learn outside your area. Believe it or not, as busy as you're going to be over this term, when you're going to have Alexis and others asking you to do different kinds of activities and write a short paper and observe this and do that, as busy as you're going to be, it's not as busy as you're going to be when you get your first job. It's just not. So many priorities, so many other things going on in addition to all the crap you're doing right now. Right? The big thing is, in this term, with this course, with the support of your colleagues, with the support of experienced TAs that are going to be leading some of the observations and feedback, you really have an opportunity to slow down, to think about the kinds of work you're doing, to get feedback, to maybe even make some active decisions. And that's something that you really don't have as much time. This is coming firsthand, y'all. You really don't have as much of a time to do that as you'd like. So take the minute, and when you come here, there's food. I know it's not the first thing you want to do, right? People want to get in the labs, people want to do whatever, all the things they just would. Take this as a deep breath. It's an opportunity to interact with it's an opportunity to interact with nice folks. It's an opportunity to learn. Maybe take a step back from the hard science. Maybe take a step back from the work that you're doing in the lab, and enjoy it, because you don't get these kinds of opportunities as much as you think you do, or as much as you'd like when you take that job. So that's it. I think that's it for me. Oh, no, a few cartoons. Oh, I already said this. A few cartoons. Yeah. This is a teaching one. Yeah. Come on. There's a flipped classroom. Y'all heard about flipped classrooms? And yeah, there's technology in the classroom. Come on, it's fun. So we'll have an opportunity to kind of dig into all of these kinds of things, the classrooms and technology, all this stuff is going to be stuff that's going to come up over the next few weeks during this course and during opportunities in professional development and stuff like that. That's it for me. Again, welcome, enjoy. It's going to be a great year, a great term. I would like to introduce, we have a little bit of a change in plans. Dean Marasco is going to come and welcome you officially, because whatever. But before we get going, Michelle Ravinsky is going to talk a little bit. And you have no slides? You do have slides. Okay.
Jason, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you all. You'll see me around.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Ravinsky Mayer. I'm the Associate Vice President. I oversee the Office of Equality and Diversity here at the university, and I'm the university's Title IX Coordinator. Welcome to another year at Drexel. I'm here to talk to you about, obviously, the Office of Equality and Diversity, but what I would like you to understand as I'm talking, by the end of, I should be 10 minutes maybe, that you have, there's things that you can utilize through the Office of Equality and Diversity as a student, as a member of the university community, and that you also have some obligations that we'll talk about as a TA, as Jason said, as an extension of the professor. You have some obligations under our university policy with regard to equality and diversity issues. Let me find clicker.
I don't think so.
Oh, there's no clicker. Okay. So what does OED do? OED provides resources and information and options to individuals who are affected by issues that are covered under some of our university policies, like discrimination, harassment, sexual assault, violence. It's all set out on the policies, and they're available on the university's website. So we're not going to take a lot of time on that piece. I'd like you to understand the overall framework. We process complaints through the Office of Equality and Diversity. We have both informal and formal resolutions. We really would prefer, as a university community, if we can arrive at resolutions informally. That may be if student having an issue with another student, if they approach that student, if they feel that they can do that, to resolve it before needing to elevate it, if you feel comfortable. The next step would be maybe getting a professor involved, getting a TA, asking for assistance in that way. Sometimes that can happen, and someone may need a more formal means, and the Office of Equality and Diversity provides that formal means, including investigation when needed. We also facilitate those informal resolutions through mediation and conflict resolution. So those are some of the resources that either you could take advantage of, or you can refer someone to get those advantages. We also provide educational opportunities for the university community like this, or to help either individuals, relationships, repair after there's been a complaint or some issue has been raised with the university. So we do a lot of rebuilding as well. The policies that we have, the equality and non-discrimination policy prohibits conduct based on a certain number of protected categories. And these are categories protected by law. You're probably familiar with most of these. Veteran status, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression are things that are protected here at the university by policy, which has been longstanding. It's also protected by Philadelphia ordinance. So while it might not be protected at some localities throughout the U.S., it is protected here at Drexel. We take that we consider that a very strong and integral part of who we are as a community. Some things that fall under this policy, it doesn't have to be outright discrimination. I took your race or ethnicity in consideration in giving you a grade or deciding whether you get a promotion. There's also intimidating and hostile acts. Denigrating jokes would also be considered under this policy. And while it may not be considered a violation, it is something that you can get resources and that the university wants to address and takes very seriously. We also have a Title IX policy which prohibits sexual harassment, sexual assault, intimate partner violence, stalking, sexual exploitation, and other things that are gender-based. Intimate partner violence and sexual assault are things that we have been, it really has been at the forefront nationally for colleges and universities, and that has been true here at Drexel. We created a separate policy specifically for Title IX issues so that individuals would know what the policy is, what the process is, and how to get resolution. These are things that you yourself, if you experience something, a friend, you can direct them to the Office of Equality and Diversity for assistance, but also as a TA. If someone comes to you and says, I believe I was sexually assaulted, it's mandatory that you refer them to the Office of Equality and Diversity. So mandatory reporting is something that I would like you to leave here today understanding your obligations, because as Jason said, in that regard you are an extension of the professor, and that is something that is part of our policy. So the policies cover all members of our university community, including guests. So if there's a campus guest, they're covered. Yes?
When you say mandatory referral, do you mean you just need to tell them to go there, or
Okay.
something that you're going to cover later?
Yeah, I will cover that. Yep, I will cover that, and that's a very good question. I'll put a pin in that. So also we have dragon culture, which we are promoting, and it's a concept and belief system that was started through, there's some people here from the School of Public Health. And so Sandra Bloom, a professor within the School of Public Health, started this. It's part of sanctuary model, and really creating a framework for building trauma and adversity-informed communities. So there's a lot of things about this structure that really supports building a strong and caring community. So you can contact OED for resources. Housing and academic accommodations are something that you may be called upon to give, or you may need. If you suffer an incident that would fall under one of our policies, particularly sexual assault issues, we do academic accommodations. When someone reports something, they may have gone to the police. They're in the process of filing a formal complaint either with the police or with the universities. There's a lot of trauma going on, and they're having trouble getting to class and focusing on taking tests. That would be something that we would work with them and the professor that you're working with. It may be called upon that you would play some role in that academic accommodation. That's something that we facilitate in the Office of Equality and Diversity. We also we have a strong referral system with the University Counseling Center, and there's also the Employee Assistance Program through HR. I already went over the mediation, conflict resolution, and filing a formal complaint. All that information can be found on the web, or you can call us. We're available as a resource and a consultant, so don't hesitate to call us if you have a question to see do I have some responsibility under this? This is what's happening in the classroom that I'm in. Just have a quick question. That's perfectly acceptable, and we'd actually welcome that kind of communication from you in a proactive way, so that we can be less reactive. How to contact OED, you can call the phone number, you can email us, you can walk over. Our space has just been refurbished. It's on the lower level of the academic building. You enter on Arch Street. If you want to come over, just take a walk. We're in the James E. Marks Intercultural Center. You'll be hearing more about that because we just moved back into that space a few weeks ago. Confidential resources that are available, the health center, as I mentioned, also spiritual and religious life. In case any of you are interested in where those resources are available at the university, they're actually in the James E. Marks Intercultural Center, and then we also have a Jewish center on campus. So we go to the mandatory reporting. And so this is policy language directly from both the Equality and Non-Discrimination policy and the Title IX policy. So all officers, deans, department heads, faculty members, academic advisors, directors, supervisors, as well as any professional staff, student employees, or volunteers who are responsible for student welfare must report any and all incidents of discrimination, harassment to OED. So you would be considered in there as a student employee who's responsible for student welfare. That's where you fit in there. And so your obligation is twofold. One is to refer if the student comes to you and says, I've been a victim I've been sexually assaulted, you need to refer the person to OED. You can say to them, thank you for bringing that to me. The university has a process for helping and assisting people who believe they've been sexually assaulted. I'm going to refer you to the Office of Equality and Diversity, and then you need to let us know that you've referred that person and give us the information that they've given you. And so you are not a confidential resource for those people. You should be very private in terms of if a student comes to you and shares something like that with you, you should hold it in privacy, but provide it to the Office of Equality and Diversity. You are not a confidential resource. So if someone says to you, a student says to you, I want to tell you something, but I don't want you to tell anyone else, you need to gently tell them that you can't do that. That the university policy is that I need to direct you, I'm speaking for you, I need to direct you to the Office of Equality and Diversity so you can get all the information and resources that you need to address this issue in the way that feels comfortable for you. OED is also not a confidential resource. If someone comes to us, they could say the same thing, please don't tell anyone. We cannot do that, but I will tell you that when we get a name, someone has been a potential victim of either a racial incident, sexual assault, or other incident of harassment or discrimination on campus, we hold that very privately, but we get them the resources that they need. We get them the information they need so that they can make the decision that's appropriate for them. Okay, so we don't tell them, oh, you need to you move forward with a criminal complaint against this person. You need to do this. You need to do this. This is what you need to do. We're gonna direct you here. We provide all the information. Here are your options. Here's what your options are in terms of university policy. Here's what your options are in terms of if it's a sexual assault allegation, here's your options criminally. If it's an intimate partner issue, here's your options under university policy or a protection from abuse order. We connect people with resources so that they have the information and power to do what is best for them. We don't make decisions for them. So the person maintains autonomy. And that's important for you to know. And I've been talking to a lot of people over the years about this issue. And I know as a TA or as a faculty member, having someone's confidence is really critical, and that trust. And what I've found and heard from others is that trust can be maintained when you pass it to the Office of Equality and Diversity, as long as things remain private and that they have the autonomy to do what they need to do. So, that's a critical piece. Yes.
Do you have to report to a coordinator or just anyone from the OED?
Anyone to OED.
Okay.
Yep. If you call OED, you'll be directed to a person who can take a report. And then we will reach out to the person whose name you give us. And if they do not want information, they can say, I don't, thank you, but I don't want any information. And as long as we make sure that we've reached out, that's good. We also don't want people to have to repeat their story multiple times, so that's why it's important as early as possible to get them to OED. Amnesty, this most relevantly applies if there's a situation where someone alleges a sexual assault, but they have been drinking, they're underage. We have an amnesty policy, they won't get in trouble. And for the most part, if that's a situation where we're dealing with a sexual assault issue, it's across the board. We're not as concerned about the alcohol issues. We're concerned about the sexual assault issues. So we'll be addressing those, and it's treated, fairly across the board. The person who's accusing and the person who's accused. Yes. Yes.
If you report to yours, does your identity remain anonymous, or are you expected to?
It depends on what the person wants. If they say, I just want resources, I don't want my name to be known. There's a limit.
As a TA.
Okay, as a TA, we will record that you've reported to OED, but it's not shared with other people. In most instances, it's irrelevant. But we record to make sure that you did report. Okay, and over the years, with our mandatory reporting and becoming more robust and people really understanding their role and the benefits to that, sometimes we get multiple reports for a single incident, and I think that that's a reflection on the caring nature of our community. Bystander intervention, we have a bystander intervention program. We have a video online if you want to take a look at it, and resources on our website. And that is my presentation. Yep.
So I just wanted to highlight one thing. I have dealt with Michelle's office in a few different cases. I also wanted, because I'm gonna have to take off, but the Office of Disability as well as the Office of Public Safety.
That's right.
If you have a question, if you think something might be off, there was an incident this past week where we had a student who didn't show up for work for 2 days. We weren't quite sure what to do, whether there was something wrong or whether they were just not showing up for work as a work site. All three of these offices are really willing and able to answer questions at the early stage of a question rather than much rather than at the late stage of a question. So I've had, again, interactions about a student who seemed to be, I was concerned about a substance abuse kind of issue, right? Wasn't really any hard evidence, wasn't really any hard data. I reached out to them, we had a conversation, they reached out, and so it's really just something to take advantage of. If there's something, if you have a question, or if something just doesn't feel right in any of these areas, I encourage you to take advantage of that. I think it's important to be on the front end and on the back end.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Donna Marasco. I'm Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, and I'm also a professor of biology. I came today to welcome you, like everyone else, but to talk about my view, and hopefully by the end of the discussion, your view of being an ATA. I love your dog. I'm a real dog person. Really cute. I've often thought of having my, actually, okay, this is a side story. I'm known for side stories. I got a puppy who was 1.7 pounds, went into Penn Vet, and I was told that I had to feed it every 2 hours until it was 3 pounds. So can you guess what was in my office for about 4 months? She's now 8 years old and is very healthy, but she was just too small and couldn't control her glucose levels until she got to 3 pounds. Anyway, side story. I just love dogs. TAs are really important to the university. And I know, I'm sure, if I asked you, how many of you said, I'm going to graduate school and I'm so excited about being a TA? I don't think I get too many hands, so I'm not going to ask. Because you had a career path, and your career path was to get your graduate degree. And being a TA was simply a way that you can be paid your stipend to get your degree. And I would say 95% of people as graduate school look at it that way, and I wasn't any different when I was in graduate school. In fact, I went to a medical school, so I have to TA less. I totally chose it that way. But then I found that when I was a TA, that I was learning a lot. And now that I've been in charge of a college where TAs are our lifeblood, I really think about it a lot. We need you to be the front line for our students, not just because of information, but a conduit. We're old, okay? We do things that we think make sense, and students rarely come to us until the end of the course to tell us how we really messed it up. But they talk to you. They say, that lecture didn't make any sense, or I don't understand this, or why did they make us do this? You have the ability to make the courses better for them just by listening and talking to the people who are organizing you and helping you to do the course. So that's what's important for us from you. But in listening, you learn over time to be a filter. You know what's just petty complaining and what's substantial. And all of you in your careers, you just don't want to get your degree and stop. Every single one of you in this room has additional aspirations. And to get past that initial letter it's absolutely essential for you to be able to determine people around you saying things, whether they're substantial or not. And you're going to make mistakes. And the best time to make mistakes on pursuing something that's really inconsequential is now, when it really doesn't have an impact. But more importantly, there's a subset of you who said, you know, I really don't want to teach when I finish getting my degree. I have faculty members all the time. Drexel is a place when I interview someone for a tenure track faculty position, I say, we're not a place that will give you tenure just for your research. You have your bar for research, but we need you to be a committed teacher as well. So if you reach the bar and are really a terrible teacher, we're not going to give you tenure here. There are places that don't do that, but we do. But the way that the academic environment is going, there's going to be universities, the number of universities that will allow that difference between research and teaching is going to get smaller. Because parents and students are going to say, I want a faculty member who actually talks to me and cares. So that's fine, that's for the future. But regardless of what you do, you are going to have to be able to explain what you do to someone whose education is down here. So often you get through your graduate career and you're great in your discipline and you talk with your little group of people, and guess what? You know, the microbiologists really can't talk to the developmental biologists anymore because they have different language. And you're both in the biology department. That's sad. Because you get so focused on what interests you, and because the world around you is forcing you to become an expert in a small area, it's really easy for you to say, that's my goal, and that's where I'm going. But one, the world is changing. You better be flexible. So to be satisfied with this tiny little area that you're the expert in doesn't allow you to change. But two, in this world of entrepreneurial enterprises, probably most of you are going to have to talk to a company, a foundation, or somebody about getting to the next level. You're going to be deciding you're starting a company, and the person in marketing is saying, what are you selling? And who better than a student who doesn't know anything? Is a way to practice that you can explain material at a level that someone can understand. And you're going to find that you'll have this explanation that you think is beautiful, you've thought about it, you tell one student and they light up and they understand it, and then 2 days later another student comes in with the same question and they say, huh? You learn as a TA that although the explanation is clear, not everyone's mind works the same way. And you need to come up with a strategy so that the person whose mind works differently can understand it as well. And you will remember, hopefully, that, so that when you're talking to a colleague in a different department, you're a neuroscientist talking to a psychologist and they're saying, huh? And you want to do a project together because you want a clinical arm as well as a basic science arm. You're trying to talk to an angel fund about getting resources for the company you're trying to start or your project. Not everyone hears the same words. You have to be able to read faces and come up with alternate ways to explain the concepts. So I look at being a TA, and I can do it as a faculty member. I talk to junior faculty members all the time and say, are you still listening? Did you listen when you were a TA? But this is where you practice those skills. So rather than looking at it as, oh, it's something I gotta do in order to get paid, take it as a way to get those skills that graduate programs really don't work on very much. Graduate programs work on your discipline, getting the research done, doing your analysis, and in some programs, learning how to do interdisciplinary work with someone else, but all on research. And someone many times is there when you're a graduate student doing the communication between disciplines and you just have to implement. In really progressive labs, as you get up in your training, they will let you do the presentation. That doesn't always happen. And it's not necessarily that the advisor you're working for is bad. It's efficient. Because you doing it the first time probably is going to take a lot more time to get to pinpoint than them doing it. You have pinpoint to go to. Just as you want to get your degree, they want to get their grant, they want to get their patent, they want to do whatever. But if your advisor recognizes you have those skills of really amazing communication, you're more likely that they will involve you in those discussions earlier because they're not dumb. If you can do it, then they can listen and actually add just the details that are necessary and let you explain. But if you haven't honed those communication skills, you can't work in that role. So I believe being a TA is an opportunity. How much you get out of it is totally dependent on how you look at it and what you want to invest in it. If you want to stay in academics, it's really nice. I have letters in support of tenure from someone who was the faculty member who would actually supervise the person who's coming up for tenure as a TA. And sometimes I get such beautiful letters. You don't normally get external letters in support of teaching. But just last year I had one of those beautiful letters saying how the faculty member got ill and they normally didn't have a graduate student take over the class, but because the TA had been doing so well in the lab section and discussion section of the class, that for 2 weeks the student actually took over teaching and the students raved about how fantastic the student was and did really well on the exam that the faculty member who was sick wrote. That's pretty impressive. So you can't guarantee you're going to have that situation, but when I presented that to the university tenure committee, they were pretty impressed. And that faculty member here has a reputation of being a really good teacher, but that's how early it started. So every so often you get that too. So developing the relationships with your supervising faculty member in the courses is not a bad thing to do, even though they're not in your discipline. Because they can help you in terms of getting your communication skills better, and they may actually develop into someone that you can use later as a reference in the area that's really hard to get strong objective letters for. So I congratulate you all on being here. It wasn't easy. I wish you the best of luck in getting to the end, which also isn't easy. All of you will be working. If you haven't been in a situation yet where you're frustrated and not making any progress, be prepared. Okay? Particularly in any science, you go through periods of, and then, yeah, and it goes on. I've been in research for 40 years. It never goes away. You always have that, and so that's there. But learn that piece that many people don't get. The piece to communicate what you're doing, and importantly, to listen so you can understand what the other person is saying. Oh, and just a little key, don't interrupt anybody, okay? Because they're asking you something, you're going to give them an answer, you know what it is, but the end of their question may give you something different. But more importantly, if you listen to the end, you give them the knowledge that you really are listening to them and aren't just trying to get rid of them. And that's important not only in teaching, but people you work with in your lab, and really don't interrupt your advisor, because it's very bad. Very bad. Even though you know exactly where the advice is from. So best of luck. I won't remember you because I wasn't introduced, but if you ever see me and you want to say hello, I walk around campus with a hat. It's a distinguishing marker all the time. So best of luck and have fun. Any questions?
Good morning. My name is Susan Harmon. I'm the Assistant Director with the Office of Disability Resources, which is now under the Office of Equality University. So we just go by Disability Resources now. I did have a PowerPoint, but somehow it got lost. So I'm just gonna
I will send it to you later today.
it does exist. So I'm just here basically to tell you about how the office works, because as TAs, you will no doubt encounter some of the students that are registered with the office. Students register with Disability Resources if they have a documented disability. And what does that mean? It means that the individual has either physical, mental, developmental, some kind of impairment that gets in the way of one or more major life activities for 6 months or longer. So the ADA in 2009 was amended, and when that happened, it opened up the door for lots of other conditions that previously were never considered before. So when that happened, a lot of colleges and universities, their numbers exploded. Right now, we currently have between 900 and 1,000 students actively registered with the office. We probably proctor between 900 and 1,000 exams every 10 weeks. So we're very, very busy. Also, in October 16th of 2017, the ADA was amended again to consider even more conditions. Conditions such as walking, reaching, standing, and socialization skills are now considered major life activities. So if you have documentation from a doctor stating that this rises to the level that you can't, that you need accommodations, then it is considered a disability. As TAs and teachers, if a student discloses to you that they do have a disability, it is mandated by Drexel that you have to refer them to disability resources. You can't force them to come to the office and register, but you do have to refer them. The process generally, once they do come in, is they'll fill out a request for accommodations. The request for accommodations, we then ask for documentation. Once the documentation is reviewed, we bring the student in for a one-on-one meeting with us to discuss how it impacts them. An ABL is issued, and that's called an accommodation verification letter. So students at the beginning of the term, like next week, will be handing you these forms, or the professor will receive them electronically. And students do not get accommodations until they turn in the form to the professor. And on that form, it basically just lists what the approved accommodations are academically for the student. They may have extended time on exams or distraction-reduced testing. They might need some kind of assistive technology. But you shouldn't accommodate students if you don't have the form or know of it. If you're confused and the student has told you they do have accommodations, you can always check with the office, because sometimes they say that and they really don't. So it's in your best interest to check it out first. This fall, next week, Disability Resources, we have a new database called Clockwork 5 that we're rolling out. I don't know what that's going to be like. We're finding all kinds of bugs, but hopefully we'll have all that fixed by next week. Students will be able to register for exams using Clockwork 5. So professors will be getting email alerts when the students have registered for the exam. And this is going to eliminate all the volumes of paper that we've had to deal with in the past. Students will also be able to have their ABL sent electronically. So that signature piece on a lot of them will be missing. Where before it had to be signed by us, had to be signed by the student. Now it's coming directly to you from us. So we don't require the signature anymore. So lots of changes. We've also moved again. We were on the 3rd floor of the academic building. We're down in the basement again of 3225, Suite 11 of the James E. Marks Cultural Building. So we were there before, but they renovated it, so it's a lot nicer now. We do have 3 different testing sites now. We have one in the new area that we're in, and also on the 2nd floor of the academic building and in Center City. Okay. Any questions? Okay. It's very nice talking to you all. Thank you for having me.
type
Yeah,
since,
sure, yeah.
and then if it goes over into the next one, that's okay, then I'm in charge of the next one, so I can modify it.
Fair enough.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm still having my own problems with BBR.
Yeah?
And you know what? So, like, to edit something. So when I'll call, I'll send them to these people who seem to be far away from this campus, who don't seem to know our system.
That's the tier 1 support. So like if they should know the basics. Like that's where it goes to now. If you have a question and you want to get right to our team, you can always email itg@Drexel, and that still comes directly to us. The calls all go 24/7 to the tier 1 support, and then during business hours, if they can't solve it, they're supposed to escalate to us so that we can help
They're
you.
lovely people, but they're not familiar with our system. A few times I'll even go into my thing and they still don't know what I need to do. So I need somebody.
We can help you with that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I don't use it that often, so whenever I do learn something, I forget. But this one, anyway, that'll be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Not have a regular sign-in sheet, but I do have class list, they sent it around, just so you check next to your name, that would be great. You don't see your name, add it, because as of Friday, I was still getting used to this.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, how are you? Good. My name is Michael Shelmet. I'm the Associate Director of Instructional Technology over in Drexel IT. So I'm over in the Corman Center, which you can still get to if you know your way around the fencing. I'm here to present on Drexel Learn, Blackboard, and how you can use that in your courses. The first thing I want to point out is that there is a team. I oversee the instructional technology group. There's seven of us at this point, and most of us are over in the Corman Center still. You can come over to the Corman Center between 8 and 5 Monday through Friday. There's 4 PCs, 2 Macs, 2 scanners, and a printer, and us there. You can sit there and do work in the course. If you have questions, you can ask us. If you don't know how to do something, we can talk you through it for the first time, second time, third time, however many times you need. You can also call our 24/7 support number, 215-895-1224. That's a tier 1 support, so essentially if you call them and you say, I don't know how to create a discussion forum, they will talk you through that. If you call them and say, I'm trying to do some complicated thing based on Drexel policy that's very specific to my course, they'll probably say during business hours, let me transfer you to the ITG, and then they'll transfer you to one of us and we will help you. If it's after hours or on the weekend, they will create a ticket and then one of us from the team will get back to you the next business day. And you can always email us directly at itg@drexel to create a ticket. So first and foremost, if you get nothing else out of anything I'm going to say this morning, that contact information, really the only thing you need to know. So, I don't know how many of you have used Blackboard, and that's a fairly decent sized screenshot. I tried to keep it large. But as a student, you probably go into a course and you see all sorts of content and you click the links and you follow through and you do whatever is necessary. If you're tasked with setting up a course for the first time and you go in, this is what it will look like. This is a blank course in Learn, from the perspective of someone with teaching assistant access to the course. So one of the things you'll see is there are no items available in this course. It's very prominent because there's literally nothing in this course. It's completely empty. Zooming in just a little bit and going over it, the top portion there that's blue, that's the area of the course menu for student links. So this is where you would create links to things like the announcements tool or the My Grades tool, as well as weekly or like a week 1, week 2 folder, or unit 1, unit 2 folders, things like that. That blue area, which you can change the color of, is the only place that students will see to be able to click on links to get at stuff. The gray part under that is called the control panel. That's for you and the instructor and any other TAs who might be in the course to be able to directly access tools like discussions, grades, the content collection, things like that, so you can do more administrative tasks. The students do not see that at all. As you should know, if you are a student going into a Learn course, you've never seen that before. This is basically a brief overview of what I just said. I will make sure this presentation is available digitally to everyone. I will provide it to Alexis so she can circulate to you all. So if you want to take notes, feel free, but you will get all of this. The other tool to point out that's very helpful, at the top right there you see, it looks like a little eye. It's a circle with 2 arrows going around it. That's what's called Student Preview. As a teaching assistant, you'll have access to this tool, and basically what happens is when you click on that, you go into the course as a student. There'll be a giant yellow bar over the top telling you that Student Preview mode is in fact on, and you will, again, you will not see the control panel area of the course. You only see the student links area, which again, in this case, is completely empty. So content would need to be added here. When you go to exit student preview, which is the button at the top right there, it's going to ask you, well, what do you want to do? By default, the recommended is to just delete anything and everything you've done, completely erase any trace that you were in there as a student, and then continue on with your life. Alternatively, you can choose the second option there that says keep the preview user and all data. And what that allows you to do is you go in as a preview student, you say keep that data, and then that allows you to go into the Grade Center and see if I enter these numbers here, does the calculation actually come out properly? If I go into the course and I don't see something that the students are complaining they don't see, then how do I go back and actually fix that? So this is a way for you to test out primarily formulas in the Grade Center. Not everything works with the student preview, just as a warning. So some of the integrations like Turnitin and VoiceThread and ApronNet all rely on the uniqueness of an email address. When you enter student preview, you're using the same email address your official account uses. And so what happens is if you try to click on a link from student preview, it says, no, you're already a TA in this course, this isn't gonna work. And so you can't see things that way. But if you have any problems, again, that contact information, reach out to us, we can help you with that. So again, this is just going over basically what I said here, why the student preview is useful, why you might want to use it in your course. And the last thing in there is edit mode at the top right there. By default, it should be on. If you see that it's off, you click it, it switches. It's pretty straightforward. Click it when it's on, it goes to off. Click it when it's off, it goes on. Essentially, when it's off, you're in a sort of a pseudo student preview mode. You actually still see the control panel, but anything that's hidden from the students will be hidden from your view. So if you're ever trying to work in a course and you're like, hey, I can't add anything or this won't allow me to change, check student, make sure edit mode is on, click that. You should be good to go. So that's an overview of what you would see in a completely empty course, which I happen to have a completely empty course here in order to do some demonstration for you. How many of you, have any of you ever used Blackboard Learn in the capacity of a teaching assistant before? So this isn't new? Okay, fair enough. So a lot of you, this is new. That's good. All right. So I'm going to go over how you would add a link to the course menu, both to a tool and to a content area, which is basically like a folder to post files and things, how to actually add that content to the course, how to use the announcements tool to communicate with the students in the course, and then how to access the Grade Center. And again, I have all sorts of instructions here. So here's adding a tool and a content area, and then what that means. And that was a bad example because that didn't have any steps, but there's steps for the other things. I'll go over that right now. So when you're in the course, at the top left, again, I guess making sure at the top right edit mode is on, at the top left of the course menu there's a plus sign. When you hover over that, a menu will drop down and it'll give you a number of options. We're going to focus on two. We're going to look at tool link and content area. So if you click on tool link, what you're doing is you're adding a link to one of the built-in or third-party tools that's integrated within Learn. So here we're going to choose the announcements tool. So from the drop-down we pick announcements. We type in a name for it. We'll call it announcements. You would check the box to say available to users, and basically available to users means the students can see this. You click submit, and there's your link. If you click on the link, you go to the tool. Since this is the first thing added to the menu, it's at the top. Anything you add, you'll see it gets added to the bottom. And if you rearrange items on the menu, whatever's at the top will be kind of the landing page, like what the students see first when they come into the course. Announcements is usually one that is there because the announcements tool is really helpful for you to do mass communication to students. When you create an announcement, it exists in the course, but you also have an option to check a button and it'll send an email to everyone in the course as well. So I'll go over that again. Hover over the plus sign, click on Tool Link. This time we'll add My Grades tool. And then this list should be sorted alphabetically. So My Grades is down here. If I happen to forget to check that available to users link and click submit, the link is there, but it has this box to the right of it. If you hover over that, it'll actually tell you this link is hidden from students. So it's telling you right there that students won't see this. And if we again go back into the student preview, you'll see I see the announcements link, but I don't see the My Grades link because it's hidden on the course menu. That's essentially one way you can create an area where you're building out content, but you're not done yet, so you don't want students to see it, so you hide it until it's done, you open it up, and then they see everything. So if you happen to have something hidden, you need to show it. Anytime you hover over basically anything in Learn, and this one's, well, it's easier for you to see than not for me to see. There's this options icon to the right. If you click on that icon, in this case, you get the ability to rename the link. So if you mistype the name or you want to change the name, you can do that. To delete the link or to show the link because it's hidden. So if we click show link, it updates, that box disappears, students will now see it. If I go back, you'll see that that show link now changes to hide link, so that's kind of the toggle to show and hide things on the course menu. You're going to want to add to the course menu is what's called a content area. So if you click content area, it's going to ask you, well, what do you want to call this? We'll call this week 1, make it available to users, and click submit. You'll notice that the week 1 content area has a different but similar gray box. If you hover over that, it says this link has no content. So basically we've created an empty folder, and empty folders do not get displayed to students. So if I enter student preview, again, I'll see the 2 tools, but I won't see that folder because there's nothing in there to show students. So Learn is trying to be smart and say, well, I'm not going to show them the link to an empty space because that doesn't make any sense. Kind of like telling them to report to an empty classroom where there is no one or nothing. So once you have a content area, you can click on the link. That'll take you into that content area. And again, if you have edit mode on, you have the ability to add all sorts of content to the course. If we hover over build content, these things are buttons or menus, I think, which just a gray bar. So if you hover over build content, the first 2 things you see on the left there are item and file. We strongly encourage you to use items to link to things, including files, and I'll show you why. So if we choose item, with an item we basically have a name or a title that we would provide. So we can say syllabus, and then we have a description we can provide. Please read this. Thanks. In the description, your box may look like this initially. It has very minimal formatting. what you would do is click on that chevron all the way to the right there. It expands out to 3 buttons, and then what you have is the ability to do all sorts of editing. So I can make links out of this, I can insert images, embed videos, all sorts of stuff. So I can really customize how this looks. If we scroll down, you then have the ability to add attachments, and you can either browse your computer for attachments, which, let's see. We'll grab this one. But you also have the ability to browse what's called the content collection. So every course has its own sort of folder structure behind the scenes. Think of it as like a folder on your desktop for the course, and in that folder are all the files. So if you browse the content collection, you're actually looking in the course files. This is everything you've already uploaded. The idea being you would upload something to the course once, so like the syllabus, and then you could link it in week 1. You can remind them again in week 2 that the add drop period's already passed by linking to syllabus. Show them again how much the final will be count for their grade. Here you can select 1 or more files. I'm going to select the syllabus file. We can see both of the files I have attached. The file name is what file you selected, so this will help you to verify that is in fact the file I want. The link title is the title the students will see. So let's say Drexel Equity Talk to X, and then syllabus. I typically like to put the file extension at the end of the title just so students know what this is. Is it a PDF? Is it a PowerPoint? Is it some sort of data file? Scrolling down, you'll see standard options, and you'll typically see these anywhere and everywhere in Learn. And they're basically permit users to view the content, yes or no. That means, again, can the students see it? Yes, they can, no, they can't. It's a binary option. Track the number of views. That defaults to no, but this is essentially, if you turn that to yes, you can use this to run reports to say, are students looking at these things? We can talk far more about trackable content in the office. It's a very, very deep conversation. And then date restrictions. So if you don't want students to see this file until a week from Thursday, and then they shouldn't see it at the end of November, you can set those dates to restrict that access. These dates won't work if availability is set to no. So you need to say, yes, this is available, but it's not available until this date, and it's no longer available after that date. Once you're done, you click submit, and then what happens is, if you have something that you've chosen to upload from your computer, it is now taking its time and uploading that file into the content collection. It is then linking also to the other file, and it creates this lovely item which we see here. Any questions? Okay. Learn doesn't care about the content. You can upload any file you want into there. There is a file size limit. I would recommend not going over like 50 megs unless you absolutely have to, just because students won't want to download a file that's more than 50 megs. But the content type is, you can, again, put whatever you want in there. Just know that your students have to have the software to open it. So if you're uploading a Photoshop formatted image file, unless they have Photoshop, they're not going to be able to open it. They would need Excel to open an Excel file, etc. Which is why we typically recommend PDFs, because Acrobat is free. Again, in the same way, if I hover over this, you'll see to the right of the word syllabus, I have this options icon. When I click on this here, I have a number of options, including adaptive release, which allows me to change those dates I may have set. But I can also edit the item, and so if I need to change anything, description, title, attachments, I can come back in here, make any changes that are necessary, and click submit to make those changes. If you wanted to use a file, the reason we recommend an item is because you can provide context to your students to basically say, I've attached these files, I want you to review them because, and this is why that's important. With the file, all you get is a name, and so that's actually fine for a syllabus, but not for much else. So if we say syllabus, and then browse, and then select the syllabus again, we have same standard options, whether or not to open in a new window, and if it's aligned and there are no alignments across Learn, so that doesn't apply to us. We click submit, and so this is a link to a file. And so the difference here is the syllabus has a title and description and basically context to the attachments that might be there. This is just a link that says syllabus. So again, for the syllabus, pretty straightforward. If they're lecture notes, again, they have no frame of reference to what is this about, why do I have it, why is this here. You could, create an item that just says, these are all the files that I'm going to link, and then link the files directly. Alternatively, you just link them right in there. So that's how you add content. Are they non-copyrighted files that are allowed to be shared with students? So like if you have like a large video file, there's a system for that. It's called Kaltura. You might also see it referred to as Drexel Streams. Any copyrighted material can be, you can go through the library and they can digitize like Iron Man 3 if that's relevant to your course study, and then put it in the course reserves. We wouldn't recommend loading it in there, but if you have large data files, then yeah, I would say talk to us, to see what it is, because we now have OneDrive from Microsoft, and so essentially you kind of sort of have unlimited storage there, and so if you have large files, you can put that in there, and then if you have a list of your students, you could share it with them or create a link where they could get to it so that you're not putting it in the course. The problem with putting it in the course is, you put your file in the course and everyone puts a 2 gig file in their course, and then we have lots of gigs on the system, and then the system kind of slows down because it's full of stuff. So we try to, that's why I was saying we try to keep that to a minimum, but again, we've never come across a file we haven't been able to share with students, I guess, is the bottom line. Absolutely.
Do the materials stay in the website after the course is over?
Yes, so what happens for students, because of the change in the add drop period from 2 weeks to 1 week, courses actually open today, or at least they should have opened today, so students can go in and see the syllabus and find out what's going on, and then they'll close to them a week after the end of the term. Then they can't get in, but as a TA, as long as the course is on the system, you'll always have access to that. And so if you build out a course this term that you're then teaching in winter, you can copy the content from one to the other so that you kind of put all the effort the first time around, but then you go and you just kind of tweak the second time around. So yeah, it always stays in there. Yes?
Sorry if I missed this, but so as a TA, are we able to access the courses we're teaching today?
Absolutely, if you've been added to them. So TA access, it can be done in a number of ways. If they added you to Banner, then you should already have propagated over and you'll actually probably be an instructor in the course. If not, they can add you through the Manage Users tool in the Course Tools area. So you could sit with them and say, hey, go under Course Tools and click on Manage Users. And then this will allow them to say, I need to add a user. I think I'm missing a button here. Oh, because I'm a TA in here, so I don't have it. So you wouldn't have the ability, but an instructor would have basically an Add Users button here. They would click on that, they would type in your ABC123, your username, choose TA as the role, you will be added to the course. Alternatively, they can send an email to ITG and say, I'm the instructor of this course, add this person as a TA to my courses. Okay. We can take care of that. Absolutely.
Do you have access to the lectures if we're teaching a lab?
That's based on whether or not the instructor enrolls you there. So my assumption would be yes, because they'd want you to see that, just to have it for reference. And again, if you don't have access, you can work with them to get yourself access, and then if they have questions, they can always come to us, so we can help get you in there. Absolutely. All good questions. Any other questions? Yes?
Maybe I might have. Do you recommend any browser, or should we use the Microsoft products?
I prefer Chrome and Firefox, and I would say actually Chrome over Firefox at this point, for anything and everything. When using the OneDrive and things like that, I typically go to portal.office.com and just log in with my Drexel credentials there, because then it gives me access to everything. And if you're collaborating on documents, like a Word document, if everyone's editing in the browser and you happen to be editing at the same time, you'll actually see where people are making changes, kind of like a Google document from a few years ago. Microsoft caught up and they can do that now. So that's what I would recommend. I'd actually say don't use Edge. The browsers that kind of come with the OS, Internet Explorer, Edge, and Safari, tend to have more problems, but again, more problems meaning there's a couple things that are quirky, not that anything doesn't work. And it's usually security settings built into the browser that are hidden in the operating system that trip people up, because then you got to change something in OS X or in Windows to then have the browser work the way you want it to. Any other questions? There's also a mobile app. There's the Blackboard app. It was recently renamed from BB Student for students, but there's the Blackboard Instructor app, which is, again, a persona-based thing. So as TAs, you should be able to use that. And then in there, like when we're going over announcements, you should be able to post an announcement to your course, like right from your phone, if necessary. All right, so that was tool links, contents. So there's relevant links here to talk about course menus and content types. I went over creating an item, and here's where I actually have, hey, look, click here, do this. So it's very, very annotated. Again, going over all the different things, what we recommend, relevant links, all that good stuff. So actually creating an announcement. We'll go and do that. So we click on the announcements tool. We're already there. I don't know why I clicked it again. We click on create announcement, and it's basically just like an email. It has a subject and it has a message. So welcome to the course. Thanks for joining us here in the course. It's going to be great. So we set that. If you scroll down, you then have two options. You have the option to not date restrict it, which basically means they can see it now. You can also say date restrict this, don't show this announcement until, again, a week from now. So if you wanted to remind the students to study for the midterm exam, you could set up that announcement today, to say, hey, you have a week to study for that. If you have a display after date that says don't show this announcement until sometime in the future, then you cannot send an email announcement. Just be aware of that fact. If you do want to send an email announcement, you just check the box, make sure your announcement is not date restricted. You can also have what's called a course link. So this is essentially, if your course is built out and there's, hidden somewhere in a folder are midterm review materials, you could create a course link to that space and say, hey, go here, so that when the students see the announcement, they can click the link, go right to where you want them to go. Hey, take this test, study for this quiz, etc. When that's all set, I click submit. It tells you success, announcement was created, email was successfully sent to all course users. This should not be a problem anymore, but there used to be an issue where it would come up and say, email may not have been sent to everyone, essentially because students had webmail mailboxes, which had a 100 meg quota, which is very small. And so mailboxes fill up, students stop getting email, and when Blackboard tried to send a mail in that way or through a discussion subscription, it would basically say, well, I don't know what happened. But if we looked in the logs, we'd say, well, actually, you knew exactly what happened. It didn't go to Michael because Michael's mailbox is full. So that shouldn't happen anymore because everyone's in the cloud and everyone has so much space. But eventually, large attachments will fill all that up, and we probably will see this again. Just so you know, it's going to everyone who is not over quota. So it is working, but if you have questions, please feel free to email us, and we can look to see who it didn't go to if it doesn't go to someone. Again, if you did create an announcement and you said, don't show it until the future, you can always come in, you can remove the date restriction and check the box to send as an email, and then that will send an email. It's not automated, but it kind of lets you to say, hey, let this announcement show up when I want it to, and then I'll trigger manually to send an email. If I were to edit this and send it again, it will send another email with that box still checked. So just be aware of that. Any questions about announcements? And the idea is you create the announcement, you put it in the course so that if someone adds the course later within that first week before term, first week of term, any email you would have sent they wouldn't get, but any announcement they will see in the course. And again, painful detail, going over every little thing. So again, if you have questions, please let us know. So I don't know that I'm going to show creating a grade column, but I want to show the grade center because it's really important. So, because I would assume this is where a lot of you will be doing a lot of work. What I want to do first is go into student preview, and then leave student preview, and then keep the data so I actually have a student in this course, because otherwise I won't have anyone in the course. So if you click on Grade Center, you'll see a number of links. The first link is needs grading, and what that does is it says if you're actually collecting assignments electronically, you're telling students to turn in lab assignments through an assignment you've created in Learn. If you click on Needs Grading, it'll show you everything that's there waiting for you to grade, or a TA in the course or the instructor to grade. So that's a great view to just kind of get you to what you want and what you need to do. We're going to take a look at the full grade center, which is essentially everything that's in the course. So this is very small. Imagine there's lots of students in here. You would see the list of students. They're sorted by last name. It shows you last name, first name, the last access date. So this is the last time the student came in the course. It also, and I've obviously been in here before and messed around with stuff because there's things that are hidden. Don't look. We'll go over this in a second. This is what it looks like by default. So you'll also see student ID, username, student ID, and availability. Availability should always be available for everyone because everyone should just have access to the course. If it says unavailable, then someone has said this student can't come in. You then have all of the columns for all of the things that are in your course. I had created some things ahead of time, so there are some old columns lingering here. But essentially, if you create an assignment using the assignment tool in Learn, and then you grade it electronically through that assignment, that grade will just appear here. You can then use the weighted total or total columns to sum up the grades. You can rely on the total column if all of the things are weighted appropriately. So if a quiz that's worth only a few points is only actually 5 points, and the final is worth 50 points, and that's the appropriate weights for those things, and that's fine. If everything is out of 100 points, then you would need to use a weighted total column to make sure they're weighted, unless everything is, in fact, equally weighted. It's math. Not one of our strongest suits, but the calculations do actually work. They just do some weird things sometimes, specifically around, so you have the ability in a weighted total column to do things like, I want to add the assignments category, and then when you add a category to say, hey, you have 10 assignments this term, I'm going to drop the lowest 2. So you'd say drop to, not highest, lowest grades. Let's not upset the students on the first day. You also want to make sure that your total weight is always 100%. So if we say drop the lowest 2 grades, what's going to happen is Blackboard is going to say, hey, you got a 10 out of 10 on your first assignment. I'm going to drop that because that's your lowest grade because you have no other grades. And it will drop the second grade too, and until they have 3 grades, nothing will show up for them. We brought this to their attention, and they seem to think that's functioning as designed. Technically, they're correct. I would disagree. So if you're going to drop grades, set up your calculation, but don't drop anything until they have n+1 grades, where n is the number of grades you're going to drop, such that it will actually calculate a more realistic, grade for the students as the class is going on. So again, little things like that may crop up. And then if you have 2 grades that are the same lowest grade, but one is out of 50 points and one is out of 100 points, it drops them, and that affects the weights. So again, math, it's a thing. So you can do a lot of stuff with this. We always get the question of extra credit, which leads us to ask, what's a point? Which is why are we here sort of question. Not here, but here. So again, we're happy to have those discussions with you when the time comes. Because extra credit is tricky to slip in, and it's impossible to slip in a weighted total because everything in a weighted total needs to be accounted for. So you're essentially saying, well, this extra credit is 1%, but then that means students who don't get extra credit are penalized because they need to have it. So it's not extra then. Anyway, any column you create that's manual, so if we create a column called participation, and we say participation is out of 10 points. When you're creating a column, you choose a primary display. This is how the students see it. Unless it's out of 100 points, percentage is probably the best to show them. Unless you just want to say, hey, you did this or you didn't do it, so in which case complete, incomplete would work. The secondary display is for you. So if you wanted to say, we'll show them the percentage, but I want to see what letter grade that translates to, or the raw score, how many points they got. You can do that. And then scroll down. You can categorize it. You can add a rubric. You can add a due date. The 3 standard options for a column are whether or not it's included in the calculations, and that means it's included by default in a total calculation, or you have it to select for a calculation. To show the column to students, which by default is yes, you can actually hide a column from students so they won't see it, and then show statistics, show average and mean for the column so that they can see this is your grade and this is the average for the class. Again, that default's no, but it can be changed. We click submit. Just like things in the course menu get added to the bottom, columns get added to the right, you gotta scroll to the right, there's participation. To enter the grade, you would click in the box, you would type in the value, and not hit a slash because that's not a numeric value and not recognized by the system. But you enter that, and I had it set to percent, so that wasn't 10 out of 10 points, that was 10%, so they got a 1 out of 10, not what I wanted to give them. So I know, right? So I can view grade details. This will then allow me to manually override the grade, so I can say they were supposed to get 100. Save that. And this isn't how I wanted to show you. Isn't that super easy to enter a grade? No, that's not what I want to show you. You can, if you don't like kind of fat finger your keyboard, when you click, you just press enter, and it'll go down row by row, and so you can just enter them. The other thing you can do is you can say work offline. You can download your grade center. It'll download as a CSV file. You can open that up in Excel. You can do all sorts of manipulations, calculations, whatever, get all your points there, save that, and then upload it, and it'll put all the points back in. And again, we can show you how to do that. If you're going to do things that way, you have to create all the columns ahead of time, but again, something we can review with you. Yes?
Would it work with numbers too? 'Cause
Yes. Yeah, it'll, so there's basically percent, score, and then letter and text. So you can put alphanumerics in there. It's limited, but primarily you want to work with numbers. And you can set up a column where it's a letter grade column that says this will translate to an A+ to an F. And when you type in a 79, if a 79 equates to a C+, it'll show a C+ after you type in the number. Like I just botched, I should not have done percent and score. Yes?
With the columns, you can hide them from students. You can hide them from students just as easily.
Yes, so if you're in this view, the options icon here to the right, you click on that, you say hide from students on off. When you click that, this icon gets added, the circle with the slash, and then if you click and say hide, it goes away. And it's that easy, it shows and hides from them. Any other? Because this is basically it, this is all I have. So if you have any other questions, now's your chance.
So if you have the whole list of the students, if I go in there as a student, I won't see my row? I don't see everyone?
Yes, if you go into my grades, so you would see all the students here as a student. If I go into student preview, it's actually, it kind of transposes everything. When I go to my grades, I see all the columns as rows and then my grades. And then I'll also see if there were like links to the assignment or feedback. There are icons there to click on that to see that. So. Absolutely. So, relevant links. So we run trainings on a regular basis. As TAs, anyone's welcome to come, but as TAs, we invite you to come. They're offered monthly, specifically on Learn, Collaborate, Camtasia, Kaltura, which is the media streaming service, and VoiceThread. We also support a number of other things like Turnitin, Respondus, and Office 365. So again, if all of that stuff, you just forgot anything and everything I showed you, just remember itg@drexel.edu, Corman 109. We can help navigate you from the statue into the door that will get you to our place. I think we have one of the only neon signs in the university. It says instructional technology outside our door, which is pretty cool. Still waiting for the wet bar, but we'll see what happens. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Again, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help. And I'll send you that presentation. Please do.
Okay. Well, we've had a number of different speakers talking about different resources, different offices, inspirational talks, but I think the people that will most appreciate are experienced TAs. These are the people who are in the trenches, who you can relate to. So we're going to start off with a little bit of a panel where they will give you some tips you'll be able to ask questions, and then we're going to get into groups, because we find that when you're in groups, you can really start having a dialogue. So if you would be so kind as to come on up. These people have given up their free time to be with you today, and I am most grateful. I will have you introduce yourselves, tell them your major, and whatever you'd like to share, and then we're open to questions, and as I said, then we'll get into different groups. Okay?
Everyone fits? Hi, I'm, I don't know, should we introduce ourselves first and maybe chat? Right. I'm Dan Summers, I'm from math. This is the start of my 3rd year.
Good morning, I'm Tim, I'm a 6th year math student.
I'm Jana, I'm a 5th year chemistry student.
I'm Dave, I'm a 4th year chemistry student.
I'm Megan, I'm a 2nd year biology student.
Marco, 3rd year electrical engineer.
I'm Christopher, I'm a 6th year physics student. Dan, I'm a 3rd year economics student.
I'm Dina, and I'm Whiteton, a 3rd year technology student.
Okay, so, what would you like to share?
I guess my TA experience at Drexel was a little different because I had come in, I had adjuncted for a few years before, so I wasn't like brand new to the teaching scene. One thing, I was brand new at some point, and I guess one thing that's really important to remember is that no matter what your experience with teaching is that you are the one with the knowledge, right? Like you do know what you're talking about. And this is like an opportunity for you to experiment with different ways to share that knowledge with other people, whatever their level of interest is in what you're doing, whether you're teaching majors or non-majors, whether they couldn't care at all about, in my case, math, or they're really interested in it. It's a time where you can experience different ways of educating, different ways of sharing your passion with people. And you don't always get to teach the greatest courses or like the most interesting material, but it's important to find that little bit of that little nugget in every course that like you can get really excited about, and you can really wrap your students, like get this is the main thing they need to know, right? Like there's something in every course that you are passionate about, even if you're teaching pre-calculus or whatever. There's something in there that you need to be passionate about and share that passion with your students. And I think that's maybe the most important thing I've come to learn with teaching, because students are really good at seeing when you don't care about what you're teaching about.
So it's a fine balance between, I guess, caring and not caring, and I'm going to go in a bit of a different direction from Dan and say, somebody's probably done it before you. And you don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel, although you probably will need to do it at least for yourself, so you can express things authentically and in the language that makes sense to you. So in our department, calculus is calculus. It's been that way for many, many years. And you can probably find a good set of lecture notes or classroom procedures from somebody else who's been more experienced. But you don't just go in there and repeat them verbatim. You adapt them to your own personality, to your own interests, and to your own needs based on the section, based on you, based on your students. So look around and see what has there been done before in your department. Many people like to talk about teaching. We like to talk about teaching. The professors hopefully like to talk about teaching. Get engaged with people in your department and just ask them point blank about what you're doing, and they'll take their feedback for what it's worth and adapt it to yourself as you see fit.
I think it's important to find something that makes you excited. So in chemistry, we teach lab. I'm a theoretical chemist. I don't get super excited about teaching lab. But I found that I get super excited about like helping them. So I get excited about leaving comments or creating review games when I teach recitation. So that was something that I invested probably too much time into because it's something that made me excited. And yeah, just to reiterate, I guess, you know everything that you're going to talk about somewhere. It helps to go back and review all the basic concepts. But things will start to click for you, kind of like Dr. Mareska said earlier today. When you're teaching something, sometimes things will start to click for you and you'll actually benefit from it. So don't think of it as something that you're obligated to do. Think of it as like kind of another avenue for our students.
I guess something that I always told in my TA training that I didn't, and I listened to it, but I didn't really believe it, was that things are going to go wrong sometimes, especially teaching labs. I remember my very first class I taught was an upper level PCAM lab for chemical engineers actually, and some of the students were older than me. It's a 5-year school, I think it's a 4-year school. They seemed a little annoyed that they were older than me, and I was a TA for them. And the second or third week, the lab didn't work the way it should have been, and I immediately panicked. Thinking that, oh, this is great, they already don't like me, now something's not working, I don't know how to fix it, they're going to remember this for forever. And I learned quickly that it didn't really matter. And now something happens, and a lot of things doesn't go right. And what happened? And I'm like, it just didn't go well. It's just not going to happen. And they come to realize that, okay, this also isn't the end of the world. It's just a lab. So while someone told me not to panic when things don't go right, and I was like, oh, things will be fine all the time. It doesn't ever go as planned. Something won't go right. It's not your fault. It's not their fault. It's just the nature of what we do sometimes.
Yeah, so I guess I have 2 pieces of advice sort of echoing some of the people who came before me. The first one is, yeah, things are going to go wrong. Sometimes it's you. I was in front of a class, it was my 3rd class that day, and I had this thing that I had been saying in every class, and I got to this point where I was trying to tell them how many minutes of class there were and thus why they had to be in class on time. So we had an hour-long class 10 times, and there's 60 minutes in an hour, not 100. So that was great. And you just gotta move on from it, right? Because they're gonna laugh, you have to learn to laugh at yourself sometimes. Move past those moments because they really won't remember it. The other cool thing is that if it's not something where it's you, but it is actually the lab, that's the process of science or research or whatever you're doing, is that things go wrong and you have to figure out where to go from there, right? Not everything is a smooth, streamlined process from A to B. So that can actually be almost a really helpful handy learning experience for them when things go wrong, even if it makes your life a little bit more miserable. The other thing I would say is that if there's, so I've been teaching, I'm a 2nd-year student here, but I actually taught for 4 years in my undergrad institution, from a freshman, a 2nd semester freshman, all the way up until I was a senior. And if there's anything that I could give you a piece of advice on where you don't actually have to go out and write something new, because there's a lot of stuff you could go out and learn about teaching, right? That's something that we can all do in this room right now where we are, is to be engaged, even if you don't care. I'm going tomorrow just going to teach pre-med students, right? They're like, tell me about viruses, and I'm like, bug viruses? Viruses are butterflies? I can tell you about butterfly viruses that are in people. But be engaged, be enthusiastic, because they can totally tell. If you walk into class and you like set your stuff down and you look at the projector and you're like, oh, why am I here? Like that, they're going to feel that way too. They're going to be like, why am I here with you? Why do I have to listen to anything you say? You clearly don't want to be here, you clearly don't care about me. So walking in, even if you're having the worst day, you have a cold, you guys are not even, none of your experiments are going right, you really don't want to teach these pre-med students about viruses. You walk in and you go, how's everybody doing today? And they go, oh God, this girl. But they're engaged and they're enthusiastic and they're excited and they're ready to be there because you're engaging with them and you're giving them an attitude. When you walk into class, you make the choices, right? Because you're the authority figure, you're the TA, they're here to listen to you. So you get to make a choice when you walk into class. If you want to teach a bunch of people who are rolling their eyes and falling asleep in their seats, or if you want the class to actually listen to what you're saying, you want them to be engaged and be paid, right? So make that choice for yourself. Every single day when you walk into class, make the choice to be engaged. Be enthusiastic. Fake it till you make it. Sometimes it's hard. You can do it, right? Yeah.
It's a tough act. So I agree, particularly in enthusiasm. I think that's huge. One thing that I really focused on was relating to the students. I taught MATLAB maybe 5 or 6 times, and I think it's probably the most hated freshman class. I mean, people don't really get too passionate about it, they're not interested. What I found was just reminding them, like, look, I was in your seat just a few years ago. You know, I hated this class when I took it. I'll be upfront with you. However, let's go through some practical examples. I gave examples related to the Sixers, you know, like trying to figure out statistics on Joe and Embiid, you know, things like that. And they got more engaged. You know, they were interested in the class. They were actually passionate about learning, which I was pleasantly surprised with that. But you know, I think just being able to relate to them, including some type of humor, that's what I really did a lot. And they kind of got tricked into learning. It makes it more fun for you as well. It's not as miserable if you're kind of having some fun with it. But of course, do remember you do have some authoritative parts. People will they'll tell you they're sick the day of an exam. Those are just normal headaches you have to deal with, and you'll get used to them with experience. I think the main thing is just remembering that you're kind of in between the students and the professor. So you're going to see both sides of that. You see the student's perspective, you'll see what the professors have to deal with, and basically just helping out. And yeah, that's about it.
I've had the great privilege of teaching almost every physics course in the department so far, and I've learned some really valuable things that I could probably boil down to 3 big things, 2 of which have been really mentioned before. Be empathetic, and your students are here, they're paying a lot of money. So give them your time, right? Give them your consideration. And you've been in there since before. 2, be genuine. They can tell you, they know if you're just throwing it in. The other thing, and I think you were kind of touching on it at the end, is be a team player. Whether or not you have other TAs that you're teaching with for the same course, whether or not you are teaching with a professor, maybe you are kind of the main instructor. Even in that case, be a team player with your department, right? At the same, at all these levels, you want to have a unified front and a unified message. You want to be their advocate because you're kind of between, like you said, the student's position and the professor's position. So don't compromise that for the sake of saving face. It looks bad on you and the professor. There are very few times that you throw the professor under the bus. Use them wisely. You don't want to, unless it's a major catastrophe, you want to show a unified front. That's a good team player.
And never really,
Yeah, I guess a lot of the things that have been said are really great. One thing that I'd like to say is I really like office hours a lot because you get to work with students one-on-one. And when you are doing office hours, try to be as patient as you possibly can with students. And when they ask questions, sometimes they don't even know they don't understand yet. So it's important to try to figure out what it is that they don't understand. So ask. I'm not encouraging stuff to have a method or anything. I'm just going to continually ask them questions and give them their own answers. But try to figure out what it is that they don't understand, and then use that to build up to answer their original question. Because if you just explain something, it's not going to necessarily solve their issue in the long run. But if you kind of go back to fundamentals, explain the fundamentals, and then build that up, then they're going to have those issues in the long run. Things will work out better. And they always appreciate it.
So a lot of really nice and good advice that we need already. So I just don't want to repeat that. I would really agree with everything that has been said. So just some practical advice. First of all, sit and enforce your team, because even if your advisor or the course director doesn't have this requirement, it really makes a difference. You will understand what is important for the teacher and which notions, concepts that he or she emphasizes, so you can re-emphasize them during the office hours and reading and to know what to pay attention to. Second, greetings is a lot of work, never underestimated. So you try to time manage well and try to do your grading like within 2 sittings. So do it just half and then another half. Don't do a little by little, because it will introduce embeddlement error to your grading, and you don't want that. So, and the third is if you struggle with something, talk to your course advisor so that they know that you're struggling with it. And because your course advisor is your wall you can rely on, and if you have some problems with students, it's the course advisor who will be already warned that you have some problems beforehand. That's it.
actually heard a really cool piece of advice once. And it's not something I've ever done, but maybe someone out there will be braver than I. It's actually to the first day you give your students something, and their participation or whatever you're allowed to grade them on is determined by their ability to come to your office hours and turn it in. So it gets people kind of in the routine to know where your office is, which sometimes is like half the battle because we could be hidden sometimes. But also so that they can see like, oh, this is some place that I can like sit down and have a conversation. Because sometimes they're freshmen and they're not really used to that whole concept of being able to personally interact with the instructor. So that's something I heard that I thought was cool, and I just appreciate that.
Professor now, thanks for pointing it.
Well, so, like in chemistry, we're allowed jurisdiction over recitation grading, so that can be participation if you want it to be. So you can kind of like fudge something around.
I've tried this out, and it's been fairly successful. Of only collecting and giving back work during office hours. Like I'll post grades on Blackboard Learn, and if you want your stuff back, you come pick it up, and we go over it. So it allows students to see that you're a real person, you care about what they're doing, and it lets you get to meet them individually. And it also, it shows which students are really invested in your class as well, which is, I don't know, that information always comes out somewhere when you're teaching, but it's kind of a cool policy because you just get to chat more often with your students, and especially in math, we're required to keep a fairly significant amount of office hours, so there should be time for them to come get it.
I think it somewhat depends on how large of a class you're teaching. If you have 100-something students, how do each of them come by your office hours, and they may not be realistic, right? And not all of them will need it, again, depending on the class that you're teaching. Something that I do, I teach 3 or 4 sections, about 45 students a section, so we're between 75 and 100 students, right? A little bit large chunks, every single one of them come to my office hours and hang out. But what I like to do is about midpoint, maybe 4 weeks into the quarter year, I'll go through and I'll find those students where they're studying. Because by that point, it's usually pretty evident and very good. If you're headed towards like a C or a fail, or if you're headed towards a B and up. And for those students who are headed towards the C or a fail, I'll quickly figure out what I'm on its current trajectory. And I'll send them an email and I'll say, hey, I just want to give you a mid-quarter kind of update on where you are. I can see that you have these grades. This means that you're probably going to finish the quarter about here. And if that's what you want, if that's totally okay. Don't come see me. Continue on. Continue on your course. But if you want to do better, now's the time to start moving forward, right? Here's my office hours. Here's the kinds of assignments you could use some help with based on your previous assignments and what you got wrong there. Whether it's your writing abilities or your math skills, here's where you can be improving, and I'd be happy to help you with that. And I can also schedule other office hours if you can't make the ones that I have right now. Sometimes just sending that reach out email in the beginning of the semester kind of reminds students that you have office hours and they could utilize them and maybe they could do better. And it can be an uplifting things that have to do it. When I was an undergrad, I taught a lab, and it was a very hard lab. And students could only do well if they made office hours. That was point blank factual. Part of that was the way the grading was done, and part of it was the students. And so from the first day to the last day when I came into class, I would write office hours are A's on the board, right? And I would go over and I would say, office hours are A's. If you come to my office hours, you will likely get an A. You'll definitely get a B. You'll likely get an A. You don't come to my office hours, I cannot guarantee what's going to happen. Sometimes I'm giving out 48, sometimes I'm giving out 20s. That happens on labs. I can't control the grade rubric. But if you come to my office hours, I can point out where you're going to go wrong. Here are my office hours, I'll make more. Here's my email. Tell me what you need. And then every single class, I would remind them. Because it was such a hard class and I really needed to come to the office hours, they were going to do well. And after usually the first assignment came back and somebody got a 48, somebody got a 20, and somebody got a 13, then people start going to office hours. Because it's a message that got repeated to them multiple times. I think it depends on how bad your courses and how students feel they need help.
Going on the office hours more, do you have any recommendations on how to set your timing up, times that do work with this university versus not, or is it just kind of whatever?
There's always a time where someone's not going to make it.
Well, yeah, right.
It's just not going to. So I've tried a couple things before. I tried having them early in the morning, I tried having them in the afternoon. I tried kind of even building them if I knew I had like, for chemistry, 2 recitations back to back, I tried having office hours either right after or right before them, kind of. And even still then, I got some people to come, but also like, people were like, oh, I built my schedule, so I have classes, like, all in a row, I can't do it. So just remind them that, you can always email, I'll always make time for you.
Oftentimes, I don't know what department you're gonna be in, but often, okay, well, Bio is gonna really limit your choices of office hours because there's so many TAs and such a small space for everybody. So they're basically, you're gonna send in like, these are the 6 times that I could do office hours, and they're gonna tell you which ones you're gonna sit for. If you can, I would say send in times right before, right after, like one of your hours right before, right after your class.
Okay.
And then another time that can be helpful is like, say 2 days before the class, right? So that students have time to come in and get feedback and still make changes. Because a lot of times you start on an assignment, you might go to office hours right after class, but you don't have time to work on it yet, it just got assigned.
Sure.
So giving students some time to come to you with the assignment and then, before they turn it in can be helpful too.
Okay, great, thanks.
But by
I also find doing, if you're gonna have a similar time for both of them, 6 to o'clock or something, doing the Monday and the Tuesday, or you have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday track classes, and you have the Tuesday, Thursday classes, kind of alternating them to try and hit as many students as possible is good. A lot of times for the first week, we'll have fluid office hours until I kind of pull my classes and see where that lines up with them. So I'm not sure, I guess, the difference more so bio. Yeah. Also, well, just unwarranted.
It's also good sometimes to start it out, but I did get burned out, I think, my first term. I was teaching 5 sections. So just putting everything in 1 or 2 days is very difficult. So although that seems nice, at first, it seems like a great idea, just like how an undergrad having a 4-day weekend is brilliant. It is nice kind of to spread it. So just give it some thought and also base it around your actual research-based meetings, because I imagine you're here to do research.
I've taken classes where the TA has said, like, if you're gonna email me with a question, like, don't email me after a certain time for, like, if the assignment is due on another day, or, expect it'll take me up to 48 hours to respond, so have you guys tried that? Does it actually work? I mean, do people still follow the rules?
Well, they email you after 6 p.m. the day before it's due, and then you just don't email them. It's for your sanity. Do
No, I know,
for your
yes.
sanity, right? Like, if you feel like answering emails from 6 p.m. until 2 in the morning the day before the assignment is due, by all means, I'm not going to tell you not to. That's the kind of person you are. I consider myself a very giving, compassionate instructor, and 6 p.m. is the cutoff. If you have not started it by 6 p.m. and it's due at 10 the next morning, you are too far gone for my help.
I don't have to announce a policy ahead of time to decide when I'm just done with it.
I would announce it ahead of time, because otherwise students, well-intentioned with things going on in their life, might think that they're going to be fine. Like, oh, well, they answer my email at 3 p.m. on Monday before. I'm sure they'll answer it now, and then if you don't, and you haven't given them a heads up, they might be pulling their hair out, like, why is this person responding? So but then, make it a large cutoff. Because you can always go the other way, right? You can always be like, I'm not going to respond to emails after 6. And you can email at 6:05. You can always go the more compassionate route, but give yourself room to do that. So if you want to say 24 hours before the assignment is due, I don't answer emails, and then somebody emails you, 22 hours, you can make that decision for yourself.
I think.
But they can expect you to respond.
But I should definitely make that policy.
Yeah, and make it clear to the students on the first day class.
And I think it's important to remind your students that you are very invested in what they're doing, but you also have other things to do, right? Because you're here to learn your content and to be a researcher, and you get paid to teach, but the most important thing is always going to be your work, where you should put a lot of effort into teaching, but if you explain to them that, yes, I'd like to help you with everything, but if you email me in the middle of the night, I might be working, or I might be sleeping, or I might, right. I'm probably working, right? I'm on my 10th cup of coffee. It's time for me to work right now. So not getting back to you, if you don't give me enough time to get back to you, it's not just because I don't care about you, it's because I have other things to do too. And those things are important.
love your students if you think that's an appropriate word, but always love yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, they always seem to forget that we're actual people too. I've had, office hours at 2 o'clock on Monday, someone complained that, oh, 10 a.m. Wednesday, you weren't there. Yeah, I was probably in my research lab, I come to your research lab and help me there. I'm like, no. There's just some barrier. They always, and I think until people are in research groups, like talk to faculty or talk to you more, they kind of always think that, oh, well, you're just sitting at the desk waiting for me to come to you, aren't you? No, actually, let's come outside of these hours, I'm never in my office. So just kind of remind them that, like, if they start complaining, oh, well, you were here, you're dealing fast enough, like, I'm also a person, like, I also have class that night, I also had a meeting with the professor. They always need that reminder that you're not sitting around waiting for them every minute of every day.
With regards to emails too, I think you kind of have to base it on your audience, who you're dealing with. If it's upperclassmen, it might not be, they should have ironed out how they interact with teaching assistants and professors. So when I was doing the freshman courses, I actually did do a tutorial on how to send me an email. After maybe a week, I was a little fed up with it. And so I had a projector connected, like, okay, here we are, Gmail. So here I am, MJ, whatever, and ENGR121, quiz 1 question. Dear Marco. Okay, now write what you want. That's it. And I told them, now look, I know this seems perhaps condescending, because it is. However, you need to do this throughout your entire collegiate career. This is how you were to contact any professor, any TA, any prospective employer. It should always be organized and polite. And I found that, although it seemed a silly exercise, it did work. And about halfway through the term, I did tell them that I would stop reading emails that did not have the course name in the title. Now, I didn't really do that. However, I think it's good practice. Because a lot of people, and everyone here, I assume, will eventually be using perhaps Gmail, linking their Drexel account, and then creating a Google filter. That way, if the course title is called, it'll be in a specific folder. That just, for your own sanity, I highly suggest that. But that's my point.
It's worth it to remind them that U is spelled with 3 letters, not 1. They don't always realize that this is how you send emails.
And LOL has no place in an email, but I've gotten it. I've gotten it, I've gotten emojis, I've gotten hey, comma.
And if you're looking at freshmen, it's funny to laugh at.
Yeah.
And I would never tell you not to. Obviously, don't do it on like your Facebook page or social media. You're going to get in trouble for it. But with the other TAs in the background, you can laugh at the LOLs and the U's and the bam problems that you get in the emails. But also try to remember that they're coming from incredibly different backgrounds. You have freshmen who are coming from schools where they, private schools where everybody gets tons and tons of money thrown at them, and you have students coming from public schools where they were the top or not top of their class and didn't get very many resources. And you have international students to worry about too, who really could be struggling with not their first language, and so they're trying to kind of understand the culture and the cultural references and get in with that, and also manage the actual English language and spelling that we're supposed to be using. So try, again, laugh, it's kind of funny, laugh to yourself, maintain your sanity, but also when you're responding, be passionate. Don't be like, what is wrong? Y-O-U. You. Don't do that, right? Just be gentle, be nice, remember they're coming from different places. It's important. You don't want to destroy somebody's day because they just didn't work and they made a mistake.
With regards to social media, what you're up to, there are going to be kids that are going to try to add you to things. Just ignore it. And they won't ever mention it to you in person, so just ignore it.
If they do, you can remind them that you're their TA.
There's no benefit to it.
Yeah. And you ever might do a deep dive on your Instagram or something, and you don't want that either.
You have questions?
On the same line of sanity, how much effort do you put into students who clearly don't care about how to get your question?
documentation is the responsibility of a student. It's not your responsibility. You cannot make them want to keep themselves. And if they don't do that, just even if you try, and just why you try to help them, just let it go. Because they will lose their students.
I think your effort for students who are struggling should be spent more on students who are trying and struggling. The students who don't show up and don't pay attention, you know, they're in college.
For one of our classes I teach, they have like 8 item boards that do the term. And I grade them all on video learning, I write loads of comments. And I tell them the very first day, I'm going to spend a lot of time on everybody's reports the first probably 2 or 3 weeks. But if I'm writing the same exact comment over and over and over again, I'm just going to stop writing the comment because it's not, I mean, it does take time. And again, it's not a lot of time away from research and away from what other people be doing that they clearly don't care or not. I mean, I can see that I'm opening the grade level board and just ignoring it. And then all of a sudden, come week 9, like, I didn't get a lot of points on my report. I'm like, yeah, how because you're doing the same exact thing over and over again and you're not reading. And just now it's week 9, you're done writing reports and yeah, there's always something I could do. If I write a comment all the time and we're never reading them, then it's not that anyone read, put in more for that.
Has anyone ever had to TA a course where they like feel like they haven't taken an equivalent course, or there's like new material that you kind of have to catch up on like as you're teaching the course? And how has that been?
Yeah, so I teach the screenwriting course to my study bugs. So those don't really go hand in hand, and I never did a lot of med stuff. Like I always did ecology stuff when I was undergrad. I took all the ecology classes and not any of the cell genetics classes. So there's been a lot of time investment, I think, by my faculty instructor. Ask questions of your faculty instructor, right? And that is the whole money then to read the material far in advance so that you can ask those questions and get them answered. But that's, I think, where it starts. So you get the materials at least a week in advance, read them a week in advance, send the questions that you have off, and do a little bit of Googling on your own, because, you know, you're a grad student, you're smart, you can do it. Do some Googling. Most materials can be pretty basic, right? So this is sophomore level med stuff. I think I can mostly figure it out. But get those questions answered so that you make sure that at least the basics that you're teaching you have a pretty solid grasp of. There will always be students who will ask you a question that you do not know the answer to. Even if it is your subject area, there's lots you don't know, right? When you're a grad student, if you're a PhD, you probably know everything about the subject area that somebody can ask you about. Don't be afraid to say that. Don't fudge it. Never fudge it. Never be like, yeah, I know this thing, and then get it totally wrong. Say, you know, that's a really, really great question. So great, I don't know the answer to it. But I'll send out an email to everybody after class once I have time to do some research. They have an after class go, do an hour's worth of Googling, type of response, email it to everybody. Sometimes that's going to happen more often in classes where it's not your subject area than not.
I taught, I'm in math, I taught a mathematics for nursing professionals course. And the math was great, right? It's like unit conversion and stuff, that I could do that. There was like a lot of medicine in the course that I was supposed to teach. And the best resource for any of this was the course textbook. I just read it, understood it, and regurgitated it, right? And if there was any deeper questions, I said, you're gonna have to ask your nursing faculty, because I'm a math grad student, right? But, you know, and you're allowed to say, I don't know, right? That you're allowed not to know everything, because you don't. And I think that's something that's important. If anyone ever asks you a question you can't answer, say, all right, I'll get back to you. You know, I will learn that for you, and then I will help you learn it, you know. I think it's very important to realize that you're not the be-all and end-all of knowledge. And the course materials are important for you as well as it is for them.
Going on that, in general, are the course materials available to us, or do you end up buying them? Okay, cool.
Yeah, whatever you need, they'll give it to you, yeah.
So, I've encountered this before teaching myself, but how do you deal with the people who try to squat in your office? The entire time, and it's like office hours end 30 minutes ago. Leave me alone.
Yeah. So there was a question about like what do you do for those that you know aren't getting it or whatever. And we kind of said prioritize the ones that are trying. I've had a couple, because I taught pre-med course to senior strength years, are very like, we're the engineers that are a little bit more relaxed. So, and I had a couple that just like weren't getting it and squatted in my office. And it was awesome that I had this chance to like try and do stuff. But at the same time, you do have to put boundaries on things and say, I'm sorry, I need to go somewhere, like you can make up, leave your office, go down the floor, come back up. I'm being slightly serious about it, because you need to value your own time with that. I have this rule where I say, these are my office hours, but if you want to, you can't make these, contact me at a class and we'll try and set something up. Sometimes those go on for like an hour or 2 hours, right? I'm just like, whoa. So sometimes in the email when they're contacting me, I'll be like, I can meet for 30 minutes. And then just setting that expectation up and not just saying, I can meet at this time and leaving it open-ended sometimes helps. But then also just saying, I do have something, I've been on a meeting or whatever. Just setting something up specific, it sucks, but you gotta.
Well, I mean, you can make out that thing that you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I have to go run experiments now, and in my locked lab, where we do not have access. And that works also for students who come to you like 2 days before the exam, and they're like, can you teach me the entire course? Because I have this test and I haven't been listening, and it would be really great if you could teach me the entire course now. And you're like, okay, so my office hours end at noon, and we'll just work on stuff till noon, but then I have experiments to go run.
You also don't want to hinder other students. I've had that in the past where I had a student sure he had the full-time asking me material, and he would come to every office hour, and I would have maybe 3 or 4 other students come at the same time. I couldn't really allocate the entire block to one student, that wouldn't be fair. So I found that kind of helping in groups, going back and forth between them, giving them incremental help, that helps as well. Because you want to keep the balance.
I know in chemistry, I'm not sure about other parts, but we have a tutoring activity sometimes where we actually go to this room. It's for all Gen Chem and all organic chemistry. You can go to that room. It's basically noon to 6 every day. And I think at the very beginning, when I took tutoring hour credits, I would go down there and there's always people who were there every single week. Then I realized for a week or two that I was kind of ignoring everybody else. And not that I was ignoring them, they just had constant questions. So I made the thing where, and this happened in the house, I was a doctor. If we had a couple of questions of textbook problems I had to do, I would try to rotate you. And go, all right, I gave you some information on how to finish this problem. Give me 5 minutes and go over here and try to break it up that way even. If not, you have people who are just kind of sitting there for 45 minutes and their question actually ends up taking you 10 seconds and you go down that, you wasted an hour of their time.
I would even recommend setting kind of an expectation at the beginning of class saying office hours aren't breakthrough sessions. Don't come in saying teach me this, right? Don't come in saying I don't understand, like I don't get it. That's but saying I don't understand this concept and go over that, right? So like, especially when exams are coming up, I usually say I don't do reviews. I do extra office hours, and you can come in and ask me very specific questions and we can talk about that. That way they're isolating their own problems outside of class and bringing them to you. It's a little bit less onus on you. It's also keeping things focused.
One of my first questions to students when they come to me with a question is, I don't say this in a belligerent or snotty way, okay, what have you done so far? And most of the time, it's rather good. They've done a fair amount of work. Or maybe they just don't understand the phrasing of the question at all and they can't do anything with it. But we go over what they have done first and make it clear that I expect them to come not just, I don't understand this, I haven't thought about this. No, I've sunk half an hour of my time into this one problem. I still don't know what to do. Here's my litany of failure, and then we can work on that. And I have, to a certain extent, in the MRC, our Math Research Center, shamed students who are not my own students into go get a textbook, take it up, read it, and then we'll talk. And some of them give me flack and say, oh, other tutors don't do this. I say, well, I'm not other tutors, do it anyway. But we have that expectation that you have done some work on your own before coming to see me.
I use the phrase that my students, prepared confusion in office hours. You might be confused about something, but you're prepared. Like you know the background material, you know what's around it, you just can't do what you want to do, right? You've tried it, I've tried this, I haven't done it, but it's prepared confusion is much better than just confusion.
Maybe one more question. I will be working in the lab there where there is some like sensitive devices, and I cannot invite to all bunch of students to the lab. And there will be access, like an online access to the lab and the other members. So the university provide us any room or office that we can invite students and we can speak loud to them.
Yeah, my main thing as well. I'm actually your lab mate. Yeah, usually, so we'll discuss it in a minute, but in general, you want to just assess the professor where it's expected you to go. A lot of freshman classes, maybe for engineering, the ACE Center. I heard the math equivalent recently. Sometimes you can have office hours at your desk as well. However, you want to be mindful of your lab mates around you. So sometimes there's a general area. Shout out.
A lot of departments, at least in bio, we have a room, and I would recommend that you don't bring students to your lab because they're not supposed to be there. You have to be trained specifically to be in the lab to get access to the lab. I understand that that's kind of stupid because they're not going to touch things and set things on fire while they're at your desk in your lab. But give yourself that boundary of this is my door and you don't cross it. Because then you always have a space to retreat to if you need to go. You can be like, oh, you're going to your lab to do things? I'll come with you. Like, no. So do your work with your students if you can in the space that has been provided specifically for that purpose.
Thank you very, very much. So now it's time for lunch. And if you miss breakfast, there is still breakfast in the other room, but lunch is right here. So why don't we all get our lunch, sit down, and you're more than welcome to come and join and share some more information. And then we're also going to hear while you're eating, but let's get started. If you wish to like to talk to you about something that you might find very interesting. Let's get our lunch down and enjoy.
When I was at the chair of the department was like my undergrad research.
I really think it's but again, the time people in a short space of time. So I'm going to hand it over to you and tell them who you are and
Perfect.
something it should be a great big word to you.
I feel like if I clap, that's a teacher thing, so I'm going to clap. It might fail terribly. I feel like you're just judging my clapping. Are you ready? No, now I feel... No, I know that's too weird. All right, we're not doing that. Anyways, hi. Thank you. Hi, my name is Marissa Dietrich, and I work with CASTLE, which is a fun acronym for the Center for the Advancement of STEM Teaching and Learning Excellence. Like, we just like our words. Has anyone heard of CASTLE? If so, raise your hand. Oh, okay, that's like better than I was. Okay, cool. So we're a new center. We've been in our center for about a year and a half. We're under the direction of Adam Fontecchio, who's the previous vice dean of the graduate college, Jason Silverman, who I think was talking today to you guys, and Jennifer Stanford, who is a co-director, and she is a professor in the biology department. Do you know who they are? Cool. The purpose of our center is to affect STEM education, teaching, and learning research and provide professional development opportunities within the center. I will primarily be talking about Drexel CERTL and a little bit about Profess, which are two of the programs that I oversee at the center. Is there any students engaged in the Profess program here? Okay, thank you, Megan. And I don't know where Chris Brown went, but he is also. So Drexel CERTL is a program that all of you guys as graduate students have access to, so it's just a professional development opportunity that's free and it looks good on your resume, and I'll explain more. Adam Fontecchio and Jennifer Stanford are the institutional leaders, and I oversee the day-to-day. It's a partnership within a consortium of 42 other research-intensive universities. Okay, so CERTL is a network of 43 institutions. It was started at University of Wisconsin in 2001. There were 6 universities. The consortium slowly spread. We're in the 4th wave, so it went from 6 schools to 10 schools to 23 schools, and now we're at 43. So Drexel just joined the partnership in the last year. Its programs and professional development aim towards graduate students and postdocs who are especially interested in teaching one day at the faculty level. They have a lot of job development stuff. They post job opportunities. They have in-person and network opportunities. And it emphasizes STEM subjects, but then also STEM equivalent subjects are also accepted. We won't turn you away. So if you're an economics person, we got you. And it prepares future academics to be effective teachers and mentors. The core ideas, there are 3 core ideas. One is learning through diversity. The purpose of CERTL is to build a national pipeline of STEM academics. So it's diversifying the pipeline. It's to increase STEM literacy in this country, which is good. There's also different opportunities for mentoring, both peer mentoring and vertical mentoring, where you would be assigned a faculty mentor to do STEM education research with. There's learning communities, both network learning communities, where you could engage in programming with other schools, or students from Hopkins, Johns Hopkins, or Yale, or I think Delaware is a school in the Mid-Atlantic. But we also have a STEM learning community where we offer monthly programming for you guys if you're interested in STEM teaching and learning. And if you're not, we have food. So, there's incentives. So one of the reasons why this is something you should consider is because they have achievement levels, which are kind of easy to achieve, the associate achievement level. So what the achievement levels are, they're nationally recognized. There's, again, 43 top universities in the country who are part of the network. They give out CERTL achievement levels based off academic work and involvement. You can add it to your resume. It's an extra credential. It sets you apart when you're looking for a job, which is kind of the purpose of grad school in some ways, and learning more, which is very important. There's competencies related to scholarship of teaching and learning, so you can do academic research outside of your discipline. I'm going to recognize my 2 Profess students. So Megan, for example, is a biology student, but she could also do STEM education biology, where she does more of a focus in education biology within CERTL. programming. So, and there's the associate level, that practitioner, and the scholar levels. There's 3 nationally recognized levels. You can do one or all 3 of them. We'll be finalizing what it means to be in all 3 in the upcoming week, so I'll email you guys with more information. But for example, associate level, if you take the foundations course in Profess, which is another program that I oversee, like you would meet the requirements. You would just need to submit a 1 to 3 minute long video about what it means to do STEM teaching and learning, evidence-based STEM teaching and learning. If you complete the TA course, we're counting that towards the associate level, so you're like almost there. So you just have to attend a STEM learning community event, take the TA course, and then submit a 1 to 3 minute long video about what evidence-based STEM education means to you. And evidence-based just means that there's actual like evidence behind it. Like the reason we're spouting certain types of STEM education over, like that lecturing might not be as effective of a teaching mechanism than active learning. It's because there's evidence that's behind what we're saying. So in terms of Drexel CERTL programming, there's Drexel CERTL programming, and then there's CERTL network programming. We have a STEM learning community. It meets monthly. We're also going to be partnering with SCDC, the Steinbright Career Development Center, for different professional development opportunities for people who are interested in going more into academics rather than industry. We'll have a winter academic job search series where we're partnering with SCDC, and we have different speakers and seminar events. For example, we have an event on September 27th, which is next Wednesday, which introduces people to the Castle Center. So we'll have a meet and greet with our 3 directors. We'll have a STEM carnival, so you can do like hands-on STEM experiments that you might have done in like 4th grade, but it will be fun, including making ice cream with nitrogen for our science people. No? All right, we'll have an ice cream sundae bar. I will allure you with food. Thank you. I like the enthusiasm for ice cream sundaes. We'll also have, we're gonna have a session that talks about how to get involved with Castle, because there's a lot of different opportunities both to do research or do professional development and or programming. And one of the things that we wanna do is build a journal club for people interested in STEM education to kind of just talk about different articles in STEM teaching and learning. We're very interdisciplinary, so you might do a biology one, or you might do physics, or you might do biomedical engineering. I hope so there's a lot of different articles that we would read, and it would be a community of interdisciplinary graduate students. What else? We have 2 upcoming events. One is a panel discussion on what tenure looks like and how to get tenure. And John DiNardo, who is the former Associate Provost for Academic Affairs, will be leading that discussion, and he was in charge of the tenure process for the last 10 years at Drexel University. So that's October 4th, and it's from 10:30 to 11:30. I'll send out information to you guys when you sign up for our mailing list, and we'll have food. The second thing is a panel discussion on grants, writing grants, getting grants, working on grants with others. Adam Fontecchio will be moderating the panel, and we'll have Dr. Dandekar and 2 other professors also serving on the panel, and that's from 10:30 to 11:30 as well. I will send out the information. We have an interest meeting in the STEM Teaching and Learning Journal Club, so if you're interested in just getting involved and you want more information, there's a meeting on September 27th at our center at 5:30 to 6:30. We'll have pizza, and it's just to kind of talk about the formation of the journal club. It's going to be student-led. It will meet monthly. I will supply food and my ideas for journals, and that's it. Yeah. Is anyone interested in joining a journal club in STEM education? Okay, thanks. Thank you. We have a seminar lined up for October 24th from 1:30 to 2:30 in the Castle Center. If you don't know where we are located, we're located at 3401 Market Street, so 34th and Market in the Science Center on the first floor, Suite 110. Dr. Gassman is a the director of Penn Center for Minority Serving Institutions. She's a professor of education at Penn. She's writing a book called Making Black Scientists. She's kind of one of my role models. I'm super excited for her to come. So that will be from 1:30 to 2:30 in our center on October 24th. Let's see. So CERTL, in addition to the programming we have on campus, there's also network programming that you all have access to. You just have to create a login. So there's research mentor training, there's scholarly teaching practices, there's resources and articles and poster presentations all on these things. They have a community for new technologies for active learning. They have online discussion groups. They have like an online journal club. They have a lot of different things if you're interested in STEM teaching and learning. And I will show you how to create an account in just a second. The last thing I want to talk about, because I like to bombard you all with information, is Profess. Profess is a pilot program from the NSF that the purpose of it is to train undergraduates, to train graduate students in how to teach undergraduates in evidence-based teaching and learning. So there's 4 core courses that would get you a graduate minor, and they're pretty good classes to take, I think. I sat through the foundations course and I really enjoyed it. So if you participate in the 4 core courses, you get a graduate minor in undergraduate STEM education. It's a nice addition for your resume. If you're interested in STEM teaching and learning, or you want to go join the academic professorate, it's an opportunity and a pathway. It's a unique graduate minor. Not many schools offer a graduate minor like this that prepares students to teach undergraduates rather than at the K through 12 level. And I like the community of learners. I think that it's a really good group. So you can either take a single course, which is the foundations of STEM teaching pedagogy, or you could go on to take the 4 courses. And the 4 courses are a foundations class in evidence-based STEM pedagogy. There's an advanced techniques course, which is more of like the relationship between you and the student, and then also like smaller classrooms and larger classrooms, and like online blended learning. And then there's a STEM education research course and a program, quality assessments course. They all have fancier names than this, but that's okay. And if you wanted to register for the foundations course, it's available through the grad college or School of Education. And I have a business card if you're interested. And Eric Brew is the faculty member teaching, and he's wonderful. He's a physics department professor. Does anyone know Eric? Okay. No, he's really good. Oh, do you like Eric? Okay, well, you can tell him I like him. He's great. Anyways, so to learn more, we have our website links. Again, you have access to a ton of CERTL network professional development opportunities that you could take, like different courses or workshops with different universities online. And you just have to create an account at CERTL.net, and you're a Drexel student, so it's a nice addition to the professional development you might already be receiving on campus. And that's my contact information. I'm very good with email, prefer email to phone, but if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Does anyone have any questions now? No? Cool. I have my business card. Is anyone interested in signing up for the Castle mailing list? Okay. Would you, I have my business card, so I'll give you my business cards, and you can sign up for the Castle mailing list by just sending a blank email to castle@drexel.edu with your first and last name, and we'll add you to the mailing list. I think that's probably the easiest way to do that. Cool. Is everyone having a good TA? You guys all learning? That's important. Nice. All right, well, thank you very much for giving me time to talk. Hi, thank you very much.
Okay, so this is the plan. Finish having your lunch. The afternoon is supposed to be spent with your departments. That was the plan. If your departments were not available this afternoon, they were supposed to get in touch with you and tell you when it would be a better time to get together with them. But the afternoon is definitely you and your departments. Tomorrow, we're going to have a few more sessions in the morning. Different resources, organizations. We're going to have a faculty panel. and then the afternoon will be the practice teaching sessions. If you have not received any information about this, please let me know. I'm going to send another email out to everybody because, as I said, new students have been recently registered, but you should know where you're going to be meeting for your practice teaching session. So if you have any questions, you can ask me now or you can email me, but I want to make sure that you all have the right information that you need. Any questions at this moment about anything?
Would you mind if I just leave these with you?
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Yes. That's right. That's right. You and take whatever's leftover food is available. Take and make sandwiches. You got dinner.